Hello, everybody. Welcome to Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard, and this is Manic Padman.
Hello.
Monica Radman. Today, we have a buddy of mine on. He was my scene partner and ride or die brother in Chips.
Yeah.
That's how we came to know one another. Michael Peña. He is an incredibly amazing actor. You've seen him in so many things, and you remember how good he is.
He's perfect.
I know this about you. If you've seen Ant-Man, he was the funniest part of that movie. He's generally the best thing of all the movies he's in.
He was in Crash.
Oh, hell yeah, he was. That was his big breakout, was in Crash.
He was in that Mars movie with my boyfriend, Matt Damon.
Uh-huh. Yep. Veronica Mars. And he is currently on Narcos Mexico on Netflix, stealing all them scenes as well.
God, is he good.
And I'm going to give you a real down-the-road shout-out. He's doing Fantasy Island right now with our top dog, Ryan Hansen. They're in Fiji.
Fiji.
Making us jealous. So please enjoy Sweetheart, Michael Peña.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Hi, Michael Peña. Welcome to Armchair Expert. So we were just talking about communication before we got in here, and you were just pointing out something that's really interesting, which is acknowledging people and how crucial that is to communicating.
Yeah, definitely. Like I took a course on communication, which was so amazing. It was like a 15 things that you need. Like, there's duplication, and
What's duplication?
Duplication was just like really knowing what the other person is talking about, being able to see it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And that way you understand it. And acknowledging is one of them. Like half acknowledgements, for instance, like when you want people to keep going and talking, you're like, right?
Yeah.
Which you're really good at, by the way.
Well, you know what's funny is I actually have to police myself on here because sometimes when I'll hear one of these episodes, this is what I hear in my head. Yeah, sure, yeah, go on. And I'm like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. So now I have this new thing where I'm trying to not do it auditorily, and I just want to look at my eyes, and my eyes are saying, I'm with you.
Right. But so do you have to edit that out?
I do.
Oh, do you
really?
Do you cut some of them out?
Oh, yeah, because it just slows it down.
Well, that's terrifying to me because when I hear, now I know, edited, it's so overwhelming. I can't even stand it. Sometimes I'm like, oh my, just shut up.
I love that you're like, I think we have to edit it. I do.
It happens. I do it
happens.
to me too because often this person is like looks, and so I just have to be like, But
Right.
then listening just sounds crazy because then it's just a random person saying,
Right.
and then, so it has to go.
A little mouse. Just going,
See, and then what's weird is that now that we've put that out there, we're gonna notice that. You just gave me a.
I know we might have to start doing video just so you can see that I am still dialed in.
Exactly.
But you were saying when you're talking to somebody and they're not giving you any of those indicators.
It's acknowledgments, basic acknowledgments, which are like your mom, like you can tell that they're not interested, or if they go, right. You can tell that they don't know what you're talking about. And so like there's not a real communication. And I took that course because I wanted to get better at communicating, especially in acting, because I do that even in acting. Because I want to be in the moment, and like I want to have a real conversation as opposed to like me just, memorizing something and then going off of memory.
Well, you have such a... Wobby, would you turn that off? I'm nervous I'm going to get way too hot. It gets a little chilly up here.
I love that you're not warm yet, but you're nervous that you might get warm later.
I'm perpetually living about 12 minutes ahead of myself.
minutes, yeah.
Like as I'm turning at the light on Western... As I'm turning at that light, I'm grabbing the clicker for my gate. I'm still a half mile from home, but
do you got your so stupid.
It is, I know. How many minutes a year am I?
I do it as well.
Do you?
Dude, I have my finger on the handle before I'm done peeing.
Oh, me too. I
wow.
flush while I'm still peeing. I'm trying to anticipate when.
And I'm trying to make sure that that I pee just as it's finishing flushing.
Absolutely.
Then I hit a sweet spot of pee.
And why? Like, are we trying to shave off 7-8 minutes of our day by being like dead efficient, like German train conductors?
Because we don't have time for flushes.
Well, but I've been doing it since I was a kid. In fact, my best friend Aaron Weekly will always, if I'm peeing and he can hear, he'll yell, "Flush is coming!" Like there's the pee's starting to wind down. He knows I'm about to start flushing.
Yeah. I noticed that I almost just like my signature. Like I made a conscious decision one day to like not wait for the flush. I remember I was like, why am I waiting around for the flush? Sometimes my discipline does kick in, and it's almost like what's that character from Trainspotting that like just quits drugs? Like Johnny Boy or something like that. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna quit drugs, and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to flush it this time.
Right.
This time I'm just going to let it roll and see
That's
how it
the
ends.
new me, as of right this
Exactly.
minute.
But I made these weird choices when I was a kid around the same time. Like, I started working at the bank. And maybe that's what it was because our breaks were so quick. And I was working, the year before that, I was working at a factory. I was working 2 full-time jobs as a 16-year-old. And because I needed to make money to go to prep school.
Right. I bet your grades were spectacular.
To stay in
during
prep
that.
school. No, because I was so tired.
I know, of course not. No one could have 2 full-time jobs and be a good
No, but
student.
that's during the summer, and then I had another job, during. Actually, no, I didn't. I just lied there for no reason. I was in sports.
Well, I want to quickly derail into that because you and I did a full 3 months of press together.
Yeah.
And you and I are similar. We have all these similar overlaps. I started noticing in doing combined interviews with you. And it was weird because I was able to kind of hear myself through you. And I was wondering if that happened to you. So like one thing I think you and I are both proud of is that like we kind of grew up on like, well, where I'm from, like dirt road kid, like,
Right.
Shitty single mother, like all these challenges. And I find myself like weaving that into a question that maybe didn't have anything to do with that. Like,
Yeah.
Like, oh, this must be fun to play a cop. And I'm, oh yeah, coming from where I'm from. Like, and then I'll like lay out my story.
Yeah.
And then I would notice you would do it too. And I'm like, oh, look at that. We both do this thing. Does anyone really even give a shit?
Yeah, and you know what? Like when I watch, and I'm going to do it right now. No, but when I watch somebody being interviewed and they get asked a question, you're like, the question's kind of cool. But then it leads somewhere cool. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, wow. Then it's almost like they're tapping into the subconscious of what they really want to answer.
Right.
And then so I go on that ride.
Yeah.
Because I remember the one with Seth, when you interviewed Seth.
Rogan?
Uh-huh. Oh, I was like, wow, you guys were doing that left and right, and it was fantastic. I thought that was so cool, and then that led. You started off talking about cans or something like that. I'm just making this up.
Yeah.
And then it, all of a sudden, it was like you're breaking down comedy, and that was really interesting to me.
Well, that's why I like the podcast thing, because when you and I are on these, because this is phenomenal. You want to talk about like a lost in translation moment. You and I went to Miami specifically to do Latin-speaking media.
Yeah.
And I would be on a couch with an earpiece in while Michael and the host would speak in Spanish. And I would just sit there with a super dumb look on my face. And I'm listening to the translation. It's quite delayed. I feel like I'm on an interview on Mount Everest and there's like a satellite delay.
Yeah.
And it was just a very surreal experience.
Yeah, and you know what was cool? I saw like the 10-year-old Dax, or like it looked like you were very comfortable in the moment, and then after I got through speaking Spanish, you're like me. What am I going to do?
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah, that's great because that's a great quality because not a lot of people are comfortable doing that because I've had to do that with other actors that maybe don't speak Spanish, don't even understand Spanish, and they're at anxiety. You are like, I'm loving this.
Well, also, I think it was compounded by do you remember? Because I had Lincoln with me, who at the time was maybe only 3. So here she is. I don't think she'd even been to like a studio watching me get interviewed. And then put on top of that they're all speaking a different language than me. And I'm sitting there like a dum-dum.
Right.
I just kept thinking what it looked like through her eyes as well.
Yeah.
But they had us do so many silly things. Remember, we raced remote control cars.
Oh, yeah.
This was the greatest press tour, Monica, because everywhere we went, there was a challenge, and I'm very competitive, and I have a very fragile ego. And
Yes, I know.
As do I.
yeah, as do you.
I try.
And Peña beat me at every single thing, even things that I am objectively probably better at. For whatever reason.
You said objectively better.
I know,
at,
'cause clearly not.
Well, like
on paper, I'm much better than you.
yeah, I own remote control cars, and I have
that's true.
raised them. Like, there's no question if you and I go, that's just one thing I'm going to probably be better at than you. And there's a
Right.
million things you're going to be. But on that day, on that Latino speaking show, I can't drive that fucking remote control car in a straight
here's
line.
the thing. This is where growing up poor really came into play. We both had messed up cars.
Yes.
And I was like, I tested out mine, and it was like, okay, if I go, it always just goes left, so I'm just going to veer right all the time. And you were trying to make that thing go straight,
Yeah.
and it didn't go straight.
It didn't go straight.
And I just rolled with the punches. Where you're like, this is insane. I actually do this, and you're telling people your resume
Absolutely.
about your remote control car.
And real life racing, I'm bragging left and right. I've also put myself into a position where I have to win this. Like, this is what I do, and if you beat me, it's going to be humiliating.
Right.
And then, of course, I was in my head, and you destroyed me. But then we went. Also doing it so publicly. We were in Philadelphia. Remember, we went to a 76ers game.
Yeah.
And they made us compete shooting free throws.
Free throws.
Oh my God,
Oh,
you guys!
wow.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You destroyed
you-
me.
Well, isn't this kind of like with any little game? I thought to myself, I'm like, there's a couple successful actions that I always bring with me that like work. Like, I'm not a good basketball player at all. I have no handles or whatever. But I remember I watched like a video like 20 years ago or someone said when you bounce down, the release of you bouncing the basketball down into the ground is the same release that you use towards the basket. So that's what I did. Just on a whim, and I was making a bunch of free throws.
I'm going to add this, though.
Wow.
You're actually, and I've gotten this info not just from you, which I don't know that I would believe, but from many other people, that you're a great golfer. And golf is so fucking mental, right? It's just you versus you, and the moment of impact is so
It's got to be
paramount.
very precise, yeah.
that I feel like you were able to block out the 50,000 fans, and you dialed into some kind of zen for your shooting. So you probably shot however good you can shoot.
Yeah.
Or you were just calm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to beat Michael. There's 50,000 people watching. I'm kind of good at basketball. And I
I'm
fucking...
kind of good. Like, on paper, I should definitely.
Again, it'd be like if you and I went and did a golf, like some kind of golf contest.
Right.
You're going to go into that thinking, well, I'm going to destroy Shepard. This guy doesn't
you
even
know what's
golf.
funny about golf? And well, it's because I grew up like I was wrestling, and I remember the when I went downstate, I wrestled in front of like a full stadium. Like, it was down Champaign-Urbana, and it was at a state school, college, and the stadium was full. So I was like, wow, this is how it is. And I was a ham, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I didn't even know. I was like a super quiet kid growing up. Like, I wasn't shy necessarily, but I was just quiet because I was always the new kid. I went to 12 different schools. And so when that happened, I got beat. But I try to show off a little bit and like...
Oh, like be slick with your moves and
Yeah,
stuff?
I mean, like, or just look like an athlete, and for some reason it affected the other guy. I did win a couple.
Okay.
And when the crowd was like, come on, Mike, I really got into it, and I fed off of that, and I got an adrenaline rush, which made me stronger and concentrate better. So I think that happens like in golf tournaments.
The worst thing, right, in golf is to try to fucking murder it.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I think the only thing that it does is that you know that you're going to be nervous, right? And then so you just let it be, whatever. Okay, I'm going to be nervous, just like when you were acting. I don't know if you get nervous, but I'm like, I do feel nerves a lot, especially and oddly enough, when I really do a lot of homework. And because at the end of the day, you want to entertain people. You want to, you want to, have a great performance, or good or whatever, as good as you could possibly can. And so there's a lot of pressure that I put on myself because I've studied so much, because I'm dreaming big of what this possibly could be.
I will add, though, to your case, which is semi-unique, well, it certainly differs from mine, is you are quite regularly in movies where you're with somebody you likely idolized or look up to as an actor. You know, you do kind of good movies with pretty darn big actors. So I'd imagine there's that extra layer of wanting to be good or nerves because of them. Is that in the mix or no?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I just did a movie with Bradley Cooper.
Okay.
Right. And, you know, it even dates back. Like I remember doing a movie with Rachel McAdams. And I think she's like really, I mean, she's been nominated. So I'm like, I think she's doing okay.
Right.
But I thought, I was like, wow, she's really underrated, man. Because there was a couple times where I'm like, I don't even know if she's acting or not. This is really amazing.
Yeah.
Does she mean this? You know? And I thought, wow, how amazing it, you know, is that? And then I remember I did a movie with Don Cheadle. You know, he was talking to me, and I was like, "Wait, what are you saying?" Cut. Oh, I'm sorry, because he was so natural.
Oh, he is
So
the king of natural.
I do tend to look at somebody's strengths and what they're doing well, because anybody can be a critic. Anybody can just totally tear a performance down. But what did they do right?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, just even if you look at where I realize you didn't start here because it's 2004 and you've been doing little roles here and there since 96, I guess.
Yeah.
But Crash 2004, that's kind of the breakout performance for you, right?
Right. Yeah.
And in that movie, you have Cheadles in it.
Yeah. A bunch of great people. And I literally.
And virtually, you're the only other lead character that no one knows. So really,
Exactly.
everyone knows everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of people. And I was living in a place smaller than this, than this attic here. So I was like, yeah. And I was super nervous, man. I was super nervous. But then I said, this is what I want to do. I just want to do this, and I planned everything out, and at that point I didn't have any kids.
Right.
So I had to do research on how it is like to have a kid. And so luckily for me, my brother had just had his first kid.
Angelina Jolie?
No. Is it?
His brother named his daughter Angelina
Oh, wow.
after Angelina Jolie.
Love it how like I'm giving such a heartfelt like I'm really
I
trying to
know.
give you something and you're like Angelina Jolie, but with that smile like that's what I'm saying, like a 10-year-old that you're like ooh,
It's just so good.
this is so good. Look at
But it wasn't Angelina Jolie.
no, it was Ariana.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that later. But
Okay.
So anyway, I went to go visit him, and my brother's like a really good looking dude. You know what I mean? He was like always really nice to the girls.
Older brother.
Yeah, girls loved him. That guy, and he was like one of those like dudes where like he always had his hair done with gel. You know what I mean? Open shirt.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me more. That olive skin like
Yeah,
yours?
go on.
Oh my God.
With you could see he shaved his chest maybe.
Okay, sure, maybe.
Maybe.
This is the image that I have of my brother, but you can see his chain,
Yeah.
with the tan.
Well, I met him. He is still a handsome dude.
He's still a handsome dude.
And he's a cop.
Yeah, he's a cop. He's and then when I got home, I remember even just the first day, I said, because I got to do some research. His hair is disheveled. he looks like his breath stinks. He looks like he hasn't slept in 4 days. And then he's like, "Hey, Mike, what's going on?" I was like, "Oh, I was correct. His breath does smell." And then we sit down, and he just holds that little baby for like an eternity, and she's sleeping. And he's like, "Oh, look, dude. Oh, yeah, that's cool, man." So his attention completely went from him looking in the mirror, looking, how he is, whatever,
Trimming his chest.
to maybe plucking it. I don't know. To this kid. And I said, "Oh, I can play that. That I can do. Like just put all the attention on this other person."
Yeah.
And then I had just read a book on Buddhism, and where they believe in past lives or whatnot, and then they spoke to a kid like they've been here for millions and millions of years or whatever it is, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool thing. And then so when I went to the audition, I said, "Here's what I want to do," which is a little different. I'm not going to talk to him like a kid. I'm going to talk to him like somebody at a bar. And then that's basically what I did.
Well, do you remember about 4 months ago, I text you because I just happened to be well, first and foremost, that movie was my introduction to you, and I loved that movie. I know it's a polarizing movie.
It is?
It is. A lot of people don't think it should have won Best Picture.
Oh.
Because there's too many coincidences. I think that's the critique of it. But I fucking love that movie. I didn't care about the coincidences.
Yeah, you sent me that.
So I sent him a picture. Have you seen Crash, Monica?
Yeah, I have. But
I don't say this lightly.
Gosh.
I'm not an actor file. I'm not like blown away with great whatever.
Yeah.
People are saying lines in front of a camera. He's fucking beautiful in that movie to the point where like I had chills as a 25-year-old dude watching you interact with that little girl. And then it had been years. And then, it was on a few months ago. I'm just flipping. And then it's like you're walking into the room for that scene. And I'm like, I remember this is a good scene. And then all over again, I was like, oh my God, how the fuck did he do that? What were you, 25, 4, 6?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was like 15 years ago. It was like 26 or something, 27.
Yeah, it was incredible.
But you know what's crazy? It was one of those times where, like, you know, you do research when you don't know how to do something, and everything came together for that part, and I'm really proud of it. I don't know if it's a great performance, but I'm like, it was one of my proudest performances, if that makes any sense, because I lived through that. Like, I lived through a lot of racism. I remember when I went from like the ghetto where I grew up, it's just north of Pilsen, which is really nice
in Chicago.
Yeah,
right?
Mexican area. But I lived across the street from Douglas Park, which had literally it had 4 different opposing gangs that were always fighting. And like half of my people were getting stabbed. First day of kindergarten, like some kid was trying to stab a crossing guard.
Boy.
So it was one of those kind of places, and that you don't know you're living in the ghetto until you leave it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, because I was like, oh, this is just life, and people were actually happy.
Sure.
And then until a tragedy happened, and then it was this kind of tragedy. It wasn't like divorce tragedy, even though it felt as bad, to some of the kids, crying or whatever. It was like your friend died, or your friend's not with us anymore. They moved. They will always lie to the kids. And then when I went to this school, we moved to a nicer place, which is lower middle class. I got called like spick, like go back to your country. And I remember being really confused and thinking, wow, this is really like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Why are these kids being so mean to me? And I had to fight a couple times. And as a 7th grader, it can really hurt your heart.
Oh God,
you know what I mean?
Well, being excluded, especially in junior high, that's where you start getting, for me at least, really conscious of, am I included? Oh, there's cool groups, there's lame groups. Like in elementary, it's not really that obvious. But junior high, people are dating, people are going to parties, things are happening. You're on the inside or the outside, and you get painfully aware of that.
Yeah.
Hurry.
So when I think of all the racism stuff that's going on in the country, I don't really think about the adults that are suffering this stuff because they're set in their ways. You know what I mean? They can call me names. I don't care. Like me, what I'm worried about is the kids, is the 10-year-old kids that are just coming into their own. And like they're at home at night crying because they think that they're not that different. And then all of a sudden this big, person,
say it,
black or white,
some
says,
honky.
Oh no, but
cracker.
but it's going both ways though, dude.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It's just not one. There's like it's a double standard.
So the black kids aren't rolling out the red carpet either.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's a lot of. Well, right now it's like obviously like a lot of white people doing that, but my wife, who is white, got it when she was a kid from all these Mexican girls. And it was
she grew up in L.A.
Yeah, she grew up in L.A.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm gonna kick your ass. She's like, what? And we were sharing these stories. So it just that's what I think of. I don't even know how we got here, by the way. But
That's
like
fine.
That's the fun.
Yeah.
that's I think about like the poor 10-year-old kids who are just coming into their own, that are suffering and crying in their rooms at night. That's what I think about.
Well, what's interesting is when you did that role, like I can't imagine you were aware then, or maybe even aware now, that you were the beginning of kind of a wave because we've had many black stars.
Right.
Like they've definitely been excluded, yet there have been many black stars. By the time you and I grow up, there are many black stars.
Right. I did my first movie with Sidney Poitier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's when I got into acting.
Yeah, he'll get you into acting, huh?
I was working at a bank at the time, and I was going to go to DePaul University business school. And my best friend's mom says, you should be an actor because you're good at imitating. And I used to do these imitations for 25 cents. I used to like imitate the nun or the priest or whatever. And especially at the prep school, they would pay me 25 cents for these things. And I'm like, oh, great. I can buy a turkey sandwich.
Right.
So I used to love those turkey
You do
sandwiches.
really good impersonations. I have to say. Another thing we
but more psychologically, not exactly a real impersonation, but more psychologically.
tap into.
Yeah,
their-
it was like this. They would say this thing, in this scenario, and that's how I went to an open call, and 7 auditions later, I was testing for like the lead kid. Apparently I was horrible at the audition, so they stuck me in as a featured extra, and I thought, ooh, I made it.
Yeah, well, you did. How old were you?
No, but I didn't.
I know, but you still did.
Oh, yeah,
Just to be in something. How old
Yeah,
were you?
sure. I was 18.
Yeah, that's to me that would have been like,
Yeah.
dude. If there was a couple times I was in the background on the news growing up, and I was, yeah, like there was like a
bar fight?
Well, there was a cherry seed spitting contest in Traverse City during the Cherry Festival, and I was like in the background. I was competed in it and won my age group. And,
Yeah.
I mean that was like I felt like I was Phil fucking Donahue, just
Dude.
being like visible on the news.
Dude, I remember I was in the paper because I took second in city in Chicago for wrestling. And I had a broken nose, a dislocated thumb, and I had black eye, and I was so happy, that I looked like beat up Sylvester Stallone in the picture. I was so happy to take second place, and then my mom says I couldn't wrestle, and I was like, why not? I was like, well, because you have a broken nose, a dislocated thumb.
Yeah, because you're gonna die.
Yeah,
Doing
you're
this.
gonna die. Yeah.
Your mom, she was a social worker?
She was a social worker. Yeah, she was an immigrant. She came to the United States in her 20s. I think she only went up to 6th grade in Mexico, and then she finished high school here, all the way up to high school. And so I remember as a kid, her, going with her like after school, and I'm just waiting for her to finish high school all the time, so complaining like a little bitch, And then,
Well, your mom betters herself.
yeah, well, my mom betters herself
And
right?
kills herself to feed you
Yeah,
guys.
exactly. And then she got her diploma, and she got a job as a social worker, which was really cool. And she would basically help a lot of people and try to better their living situations, and sometimes have to take the kids away if they were crackheads or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so we'd have to get into the car and just race off sometimes. She'd like, get in the car. I'm like, what? And then, and like the kid was dirty as hell and like kind of bloody. And
Well, isn't that something? Even when you grow up, that's the thing. Like, so there were moments where I lived in the really, the welfare apartment. And you might, to your point about being a kid, you're like, oh, this is just life on planet Earth.
Right.
And there's always someone worse than you. So there's always, you can always visibly see someone's like, oh, well, they're fucked up. They got it rough. And it can help you. It can get you through.
Yeah, you're like, at least I'm not like that kid.
Yeah. We don't have the McMansion, but at the same time, you know.
Exactly. But oddly enough, you know what's funny? Dude, when I went to prep school, Marist High School in Chicago, which was a great school, really taught me a lot of stuff. The most depressed kids that I saw were the rich kids. Because their dad, like my dad, even though he was super tired, like I didn't see him all week, it's just like basically my mom. And now I understand, like he wasn't really around because he was working so much to like pay for the bills.
Right.
And put us through prep school, me and my brother. Like my brother was in Catholic school.
What'd your dad do?
He was he worked at a place called Handy Button, which he used to make buttons in a factory. And I used to think it was so cool because they had these huge machines. And as a kid, you're like, wow, these are like transformers. And he would come to a couple of like football games and like wrestling things and
Trying to keep himself awake at those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Nodding off in the audience.
Yeah. And then there were some rich kids where like the dads just never came around.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were MIA, and they were like in the freshman year, like you could see that it was taking a toll. By junior year, like they were like, "Fuck this," and then they started making trouble.
Yeah. Well, how many super rich people do we know here in LA where you're like, God, I just thought you'd be happier.
Right, but there's no
Seems-
game, dude. There's like, what are they doing in life? You know what I mean? They have everything that they need. They're not going out and struggling and like accomplishing something. Like, do you remember your first like good paycheck?
Oh God, yeah,
know?
I bragged about it. I told people I was so inappropriate. Like you're not supposed to tell people what you made. And when I'm without a paddle, I remember I was with Michael Rosenbaum, and I like, got the call. I'm like, So I got the offer, yeah. And how much is it? I was like, oh my god, that much money. And I tell him immediately, and I tell him I couldn't keep a lid on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, with me, I only was like that with my brother because we're so competitive.
Right, sure.
But it was like, dude, I got $2,000, bro. He's like, you did? Shut up. I'm like, yeah, bro. You know what I mean? I was like, I gotta go, dude.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
So, back to you and Crash. I doubt you would be aware of it, but there, as you pointed out when we were promoting Chips, like Eric Estrada was the first Latino lead on a TV show,
Right? Yeah.
in your childhood, where you're like, wait a minute, a dude looks like me is on TV,
Yeah.
and that's in '79.
That's in 79, which is kind of late, you know. But you still.
and then you had Edward James Olmo.
But see, that was my guy. Edward James almost like I was happy that, and that's why like I change any of the names into a Latin name, even if it doesn't start out that way.
Characters that you get,
Characters that I play because I'm like I think maybe it'll inspire some kids, inspire some people that are Latin. But I remember when I watched Stand and Deliver how inspired I was. You know, when he was teaching calculus to these inner city kids.
Yeah.
And I ended up in high school taking calculus. And, you know, I barely passed it or whatever because I went to a school that was.
because it's fucking hard.
Yeah, it's too hard.
Yeah. No, but you need to go to a good school. Like, you need to go to a good grammar school to prepare you for the kind of high school that I went to.
Right.
You know
yeah.
what I
Did
mean?
you feel underwater when you got there?
Unbelievably. There was a huge learning curve, and I was just playing catch up for like the first 2 years.
What was your reaction to that? Because I could see it giving you either an inferiority complex or also making you give you a good chip on your shoulder where you're like, no, fuck you. I know I am.
It was the first one.
It was the first one. You got an inferiority complex.
Yeah, because especially when somebody has like such a great vocabulary, I was like, wow, this person's much smarter than me. Even though like I'm great at math, like it definitely like made me feel insecure. And then when I got to Hollywood, I was like, wow, I was really insecure because I didn't have the vocabulary, but I wanted to be a good actor. I wanted to be a good working actor, you know, in every different genre. And be able to be effective in every different genre, and I had to study a lot more than the other guys.
Right. But when you did Crash, up to that point, you had played like Gangbanger number 1, Gangbanger number 2, Gangbanger number 3. You working your way.
I said that in a talk show, but it's totally true.
Yeah, I guess you started probably at Gangbang number 5.
Number
and we're
5,
working
and
your
then
way up to number 1.
Your goals change, and then you're like, "Fuck this, man! That guy always gets a gang leader." You know,
Gang leader.
you get competitive at whatever level you're at, right?
Of
You're like,
course.
I'm gonna be a fucking gang leader, dude. I'm like, I'm gonna start working out, bro. You know, and I'm like, I'm gonna fuck up that NYPD Blue, dude. I'm like, I'm gonna work on my New York accent, dude. I'm like, and then I'd call my mom. I was like, I got a gang leader. She's like, oh my god.
Is that what? Well, when I was looking at your resume today, I did notice you were on NYPD Blue like 8 years apart.
A bunch of times, dude. Like, no, it was.
Oh, it was more than that.
Yeah, it was more than that. Always different characters, and then
But always some kind of miscreant or something.
yeah, or something like whatever. And then I remember I made up. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to play gangbangers, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be an actor. You know,
Right.
So I started playing music, and then also there was a couple of things. I'm like, and then if I'm going to play a gangbanger, I'm gonna apply all this, you know, all the my teachings or studying that I was doing for like Sanford Meisner and all this acting technique, and I'm gonna play him like a real person.
Right.
And the first time that I did that was Crash.
Right. Well, I think Crash was kind of a real revelation for a lot of people. I think that, and it's a testament to both you and probably Paul Haggis, that it was, you took this really generic trope of the LA gangbang with the shaved head.
Right.
And then you saw, oh, this guy has a kid, and oh, this guy loves his kid like you. Like, it was really, I thought it was really powerful. And I think
Right.
Up to that point, maybe I missed some movies along the way, but it seemed like Latino characters were largely filling the same role that black folks always had in the
Right.
60s and 70s. Like, oh, they're going to be the drug addict and the criminal and all these things. And that performance, even though starting with that premise of you being a gangbanger and stuff, like transcended that in a way that I think shifted the whole thing. I think there's a lot of different roles being written now, and I think that's one of the first big starting points for all that.
It did change. I mean, it changed my career, and I think that right now the generation that we're living in is awesome because I
can name like 5 really talented Latino actors now that are getting big lead roles. And
yeah,
I don't think you
exactly.
could have done that in 2004.
no, and you know what? Do you remember the breakdowns?
Oh yeah.
Dude, I couldn't even believe it. I still have some of them. Where
So just really quick, when they make a movie or a TV show, they send out a breakdown to all the casting directors, and they're listing the characters and what they're looking for.
yeah, and a brief description of what they are.
Yeah.
So that you're like, oh, I could play this guy. Basically, like the first, I'd say 8 would be Caucasian only. Mm-hmm. And it'd be Caucasian. You're like, and then oddly enough, like number 9 would be like African American name, but it had to be a name,
right.
and then it wouldn't be until like 15 that it would say open to other ethnicities. So the best I could do is 15th place
Right.
back in the day. And so that's why I was like, I don't know if this acting thing is going to work out. I'm still going to do it for the rest of my life, but I might not have the type of success that I want to have because I don't think it's out there for me.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, what's interesting is I had all these moments with you along your career that you were, of course, unaware of because you weren't with me. But of course, Crash was like my introduction to you, and I was like, I really, really like that guy, and he's really special. Then I saw, and this was part of my pitch to you when I tried to get you to do Chips. Then I saw End of Watch, and I was like, oh, dude, this guy's like a lead hero, like a franchise dude. This is like a Latino Eddie Murphy when I saw 48 Hours. Like, this guy's got charisma to burn. He's a movie star. That movie was just, you were so great in that. I had just assumed you were those people, I guess, as you would do.
right.
And then as we come to get to know each other, I'm like, oh, I've never really seen Michael Peña in a movie, really. Now that I know you. And I don't think I've had that experience too often. But when we first started working on Chips,
Right.
you and I are opposites, right? Like
Why
I almost
so?
well
Why
in
so?
this way, like I weirdly think of myself as being at my best when I feel like I'm falling off a cliff and I'm trying to catch up, right? Like, so if I'm in a scene where I almost half know the dialogue, that somehow ends up being my best. So I don't like to rehearse at all. And you love to rehearse. When we first started talking, you're like, I want to rehearse every day for a month leading up to it.
Right.
And I was like, oh, wow, how are we going to do that? What am I going to do in these rehearsals? Blah, blah, blah. And one of the fascinating things I learned about you is we sit down for like the first time to rehearse and you start asking me all these questions. And I guess I'm like, are you asking me as your scene partner or as the director? And you go, no, I'm talking to the writer. I always meet with the writer.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting thing that I had never met an actor that does that. So when you do a movie, you're initially most interested in meeting the writer.
All the time. Because if I take a look at the anatomy of making a movie, everyone agrees on a script. And you're like, wow, this is a great script. I'm going to produce a script. Producers go to director. Wow, this is a great script, great story. And it's got a couple of things, but whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I want to direct it. An actor looks at the team, reads a script, sees this. I mean, it's the story. I mean, it's basically ideas put together and structured and structured, and say, you know what, I want to do this movie. So for me, I always go to the person that does, like made up this story,
The world.
created this story, right? And so to me, I want to know what they were thinking, like what they were thinking, what they wrote. And sometimes they don't think. It's like streamlined consciousness, and I want to know what's behind it.
Right.
Right. And if not, like sometimes a story of mine might mirror that. And so I'm not afraid of rehearsing because rehearsing isn't to me like say, doing the same lines over and over and over again, it's fortifying like the pictures stronger and stronger, so I know what I'm talking about. And then, but also while we were rehearsing, you wrote some killer scenes.
Oh yeah.
Because
Well,
of
we
our
would just be shooting the shit.
Yeah, like when we did End of Watch, we rehearsed so much. Me and Jake Gyllenhaal, who was fantastic, man. He was so great and really like helped me, especially with my confidence. He's like, dude, do it, man. It's awesome when you're doing that. So I really got to thank Jake for that. But there was times where we would rehearse and we kept talking about the same things. And then there would be a couple of improv scenes where we talked about the same thing. So it really didn't feel like improv.
Right.
you know? And it always felt fresh, especially we could rehearse it 100 times, but then when you do it on camera, it changes.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like when you rehearse for an audition, you rehearse. You go into an audition and it's completely different.
Yes.
And you got to be ready for that.
Yeah. But yeah, so what's funny is my strength is almost the opposite of yours, which is my strength is I can get to what I can do really quick. Like I have a little zone that I stay in, and then the only upside of it is I can get there really quick. I don't have to think much about it.
Right.
I can just do it. And then you are very much more building a house. And it was really fun to watch how you go through all that. And I agree, we would just start shooting the shit. And then we're talking about whether, people eat each other's asses, and we're both laughing like very sincerely. Right. And then you're like, no, this is the kind of thing they should talk about. And I'm like, yeah, let me try to write up a eat an ass scene.
Yeah. By the way, I can't believe, dude, it's so inappropriate. Like when I'm with my kid and my wife and we're in the airport and they're like, dude, man, I just want to tell you that I eat ass too, man. I'm like, bro, come on, dude. I'm with the family, man. He's like, no, but it's true. It's true. I'm like, I didn't even write that. Like, dude, Dax wrote that.
Dax is the perv that would have eaten
ass.
I mean?
I'm like, Dax is talking about himself, man. I'm like, but you wrote my character like you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Of course.
Well, that's what's funny is like these two characters are opposites, but really they're just kind of I am all those things. I was drug addict, sex addict, everything. It was just kind of two sides maybe.
Yeah. Exactly.
But you first of all, that scene was the easiest one we shot in the whole movie, don't you think?
Yeah, that was so cool, yeah.
We did it one time and we were like, oh, well, we did that on the very first time out of the gates.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it 2 more times for fun.
Yeah.
But it didn't get better. We had a couple more different details in there. But that scene just happened just magically, I think, right out of the gates.
Yeah. And I'm like, I think you wrote a great scene.
Well, but we were both so sincere about our points of view.
Which I thought was, but that can't, see, that's what the kind of thing that comes out of rehearsal. It's becoming kind of a cult hit.
Chips?
Yeah. The biggest compliment that I think we both can get is there was a gentleman that like was scrolling through and it was like, I think a flight to like Australia or something. He's looking, he's like, put on chips. I was like, that's pretty cool. Oh, I remember shooting that part, blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting behind him. And then he, he's done with it, laughing his ass off. I was like, cringing, making sure my kid doesn't see it, whatever. And then it ends. He's scrolling again. Fuck it, I'm gonna watch Chips again.
Get the fuck out of here! I'd be doing
all the way through and laughing.
Oh wow!
Laughing again.
I would have been doing cartwheels down the aisle if I would have seen that.
You would not have been hiding. You would have stuck your head through.
I would have tapped him on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I wrote that.
That's mine.
The 10-year-old like that was me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would be curious about your experience if you had to sum it all up. I had an experience recently that allowed me to experience what you had experienced in the movie that went way over my head.
Oh, explain.
Well, let me just start by saying that I think you and I had crazy chemistry. Like you just have it or you don't.
We had so much fun though, didn't we?
We did have fun, but I would say from my point of view, I felt often while we were making the movie that I wasn't certain you ever truly trusted me. I felt like you were thinking, he's full of shit. He's not this nice or something. To me, where I felt like you and I fell in love was on that press tour.
You know what's funny, dude? I'm like, I always like loved you. I think like you're like an awesome person.
Okay.
And the thing that you probably saw was just my nerves
Oh, okay.
and like my anxiety
Uh-huh.
of that's why I need to prepare like the way that I do to be able to, just push through the nerves.
Yeah.
And so you're probably seeing that. And so when and then I'm also lenient when other actors are acting up. I ask myself, is it nerves?
Oh,
I mean, are they at anxiety?
Are they
about this
scared?
thing?
And
You're like, dude, come on, man. I need this to happen. You'll see actors like, dude, oh my God, man. You're like, oh, the guy's just a little nervous. I totally get it.
Right.
I totally get it.
That's a very benevolent place to be viewing it from.
But it's also the reality of it. You know what I mean? The reality of it. And I'm like, because I was nervous a little bit every day.
Well, there were things also that I would want you to do that were out of your comfort zone. Like we had to be big pretty often, like overly big, right? Like there were just broad, yeah. Or
no, but see, I'm like, but I did the movie, right? And I remember thinking, I was like, I like being uncomfortable when I'm filming, if that makes any sense, because that was uncomfortable, and then when I'm listening to you say things, I don't think I never said, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
No.
I always process it. I'm like, okay, how am I going to make that real for me? How am I going to? So you can tell me, I want you to do this, and scream at your brother. I'm like, okay, why am I going to do it? Like, how's that going to be real to me?
Right.
Ooh, you know what? And then I get ideas about it. And then so I'm figuring it out how it's going to be real for me.
Oh, okay. So I came to a very wrong conclusion, but this was my conclusion. So I recently was co-starred with somebody, and they were directing.
Oh, wow.
For the whole project.
Yeah.
And what I started immediately feeling was, and I missed it really bad, which is one of the funnest things of being an actor is it's you and your scene partner almost versus the director in a weird way. Even if you love the director and you want to do exactly what you're trying with your scene partner to go like, what are you and I going to do in here? What are we going to create? There's a companionship in like this shared goal, and you're going to agree upon it. Mm-hmm. You're going to like compromise. You're going to talk about it, and then you're going to execute it together.
Right.
And it's this like partnership you have. And for the first time I experienced where I was like, oh no, this person already has an idea of what this is supposed to be. And it doesn't really include me and this person figuring that out.
Right.
Because it's the director. It's just the nature of a director. They have a global view of what the thing's supposed to be. That's their job.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it doesn't allow for you and I to have that experience where we decide what it's going to be as actors. I mean, the director is going to keep us in a box, right? But you and I as actors are going to decide what it's going to be.
Right.
But for you... You were kind of robbed of that because I too had this global thing of what it was going to be. I don't
think I was robbed about it because we were rehearsing so much.
But you didn't feel like that experience you and Jake had. You don't feel like I kind of didn't allow that to happen. I could see where I would be guilty of having not allowed it to be as much ours as two actors in the scene.
Well, here's the thing: when we were rehearsing. You changed a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, I guess that all happened in rehearsal.
And then it all happened in rehearsal.
Right.
And then once you started directing, I gave you like, I guess kind of the attitude of like when I didn't want to do something that I would give a director.
Yeah.
But except you were my co-star. So you're like, but I'm your co-star. I'm like, not right now, you're not. Right now, you're the director, dude. And I don't know if I want to do that. And you're like, well, just do it for me, okay? Say it for me. And I'm like, okay. But I don't, like, there was one time in the ambulance where I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. And you're like, just say it. And I'm like, I need it to make sense. I need it to make sense. And you got bent out of shape.
Sure.
And then we're so sensitive that you're like, here's the thing. That really hurt my feelings. I'm like, dude, that hurt my feelings too, bro.
Yeah, we mashed it out afterwards.
We mashed it out.
So I went to LA Children's Hospital last week and gave presents out, right, to kids in there.
Oh, dude, next time you do that, call me, dude.
Oh, it's so
Definitely
fun.
do that.
It's so fun. It's great because they don't want to sit around and talk about how sad it is. They just want to have like fun. And
like living in the ghetto, dude. I don't want to talk about how poor I am. I'm like, dude, I want a distraction.
Yes. So I go in there, but the comical thing, of course, is none of these kids know who I am. I mean, they're kids. They don't watch anything I do.
right,
So it's like
yeah.
you're being invited because you're famous, but then you, as you're walking down the hall, it starts occurring to you like, well, this 9-year-old is not going to, it's just going to be a strange, tall, goofy white guy that walked in.
Yeah.
But there was a really funny moment. So the nurse would kind of tell me before I went into each room, like, oh, this is Kara. She's this years old, blah, blah, blah. And we walk into one room, and before we get in, she goes like, oh, this is David. This is going to be hard. He's been here for 3 weeks. He said maybe 3 words to me. So you're going to have to do the heavy lifting. I go, okay, great. So I walk in the room. There's like a 14-year-old kid in a wheelchair. He's like playing a Game Boy. And he looks up and he goes, oh, Chips.
No.
Chips. And I go, oh my God, you saw Chips? He goes, I love Chips. The other guy's way better than you. I promise you this just happened last week. And I go, oh yeah, Michael Peña. Yeah, he's a much better actor than me. And he goes, yeah, I love him. Will you tell him that I love him? And I'm like, actually, I'm seeing him next week. I will tell him you love him. It was the greatest. He just went straight out, like took my legs out.
Oh man, dude, were you heartbroken going in?
You know,
Because now that you're a dad, right? Like now I'm like, I get like teary-eyed looking at a good Olympic commercial.
yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's for the Olympics. I'm like, oh, somebody gave up so much.
Oh, even like a Viagra commercial with old people about to make love. I'm like, oh, one day maybe I'll do that in a wooden hot tub with Kristen. You know, I went expecting to feel bad, right? And then when I get in there, of course, I'm like, I'm definitely cognizant of the fact, like, oh, these parents are probably going to be spending Christmas in here.
Right.
But then I'm also hit with the fact that fear is such a powerful thing. Like my fear of ending up there with my kid is 1,000. You know,
Oh,
it's
man.
it's as big as it could get. But then when you recognize in practice, which always happens with things you're afraid of, when you're walking through life and you're experiencing these things that you're afraid of, when you're in them, you're just taking the next step. And you're putting one foot in front of the other, and you're trying to smile through it, and you're getting through it. And so I was kind of overwhelmed with, like, you go into the room, everyone's not sitting around feeling bad for themselves that they're sick. Like, the parents are making jokes, the kids are making jokes, they're talking about fun stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah, we are resilient motherfuckers. Like, we're afraid of a lot of things, but when we get in them, you just keep marching. And I don't know, there's something about it that I found to be, it just gave me a ton of gratitude, and I weirdly left me optimistic. It was the opposite of what I thought.
Yeah, like my mom was sick growing up, and so there was something bad that happened to her, and I was like, by the time I'm like, I think I was like, it started when I was like 5 years old. From 5 to about the time that I moved out, she would like two times a month, like, you know, like calling the ambulance and blah blah blah, and you know, my schoolwork started suffering because we, you know, at first it was like, oh, I really want mom to be okay. You know, she had asthma attacks, diabetes, and all these different, you know, ailments. And
Does she have like an autoimmune thing or?
well, you know, she got on some pills,
Okay.
right? And she was suffering depression. She got on some pills, but then, you know, I think she was on Prozac, and then, but she had a very bad doctor that was telling her, like, she was suffering through all these different kinds of side effects, and then we're given more pills and more pills. Where soon enough, we had a daily regimen where it was a full drawer,
Oh boy.
and it was like, you know, as a 12-year-old kid, I was like, my mom's talking to the walls. I'm like, I don't know, telling the
These
doctor.
don't seem to be helping.
I was like, I don't think these are it. And they're like, no, you know what? She needs this. And then, right. So,
Yeah.
anything for the insurance, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was going to the hospital quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a bad way, I just kind of got used to it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is the life I'm going to lead. Okay, cool. So she was talking about, when she was talking about different things in the wall or whatever, I was like, I'm going to roll with it. You know?
Right.
Which oddly enough, kind of like, it's funny how like life helps you become
Prepares you.
to be an actor, or to, like, you know, a life of escape, you know, which is acting and pretending and, you know, trying to, you know, entertain people or whatnot, is, you know, talking to my mom where she's, you know, talking about all these crazy things, is I just decided to play with her. you know,
Right.
and talk about these things. And then like they were a real thing because that's real for her.
Uh-huh.
Right. And now I think oddly enough that helped me. But at the end of the day, I was like, it was a story about hospitals.
Right.
And that you just get used to them, and then you just try to do the best.
Oh yeah, well I've been on a couple different USO tours, and I've been in Afghanistan where guys got killed, and you sit on the flight line, and they're bringing guys back in a helicopter, and you kind of look around at the other guys, And you go like, oh yeah, you get used to anything.
Right.
You know, like you're kind of, you have this idea in a movie what that scene would look like. And you're looking at the soldiers and you're like, oh, they're not playing the part. Like, you know, this guy should be crying. This guy should be leaning on this guy. And then I don't know, there's a certain reality to it that it doesn't play out that way.
Yeah,
and everyone's like, yeah, they've seen it a bunch of times.
Exactly.
Before we leave, Chips, I know you want to, but
Yeah.
but I was in a scene with
That's
Michael.
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Were you nervous?
Of course.
I did. I was just trying to be nice, and I was like, "Hey, if you ever see a cat or anything like that," and then Dax comes in, he's like, "Oh, I like the rhythm.
Oh yes,
There's a little
of
rhythm."
course.
I'm like, "What is that rhythm?"
Of course, he picked up
was
on
like-
any.
You were giving her a little rhythm, and I liked it.
A little rhythm to me. I was just trying to be nice, and I was like, "Is that rhythm?"
Well,
He
some
finds
people,
rhythm in most anything.
I can see it. I can see rhythm.
That's right.
I've got like X-ray vision for rhythm. I saw connection and some rhythm.
But that's somebody who's really thought about like whatever it is that you were thinking about, because you're like, "Ooh, I like that rhythm." I've never even heard that word
Yeah.
towards that kind of
Sure.
dynamic.
Well, you guys actually had so much rhythm that I remember I had to rein it in a little bit because the improv started. You guys were like making plans, and it was all great.
were we?
Yes,
I don't remember
He was
that.
like asking like what you're doing later and stuff, and then you were getting kind of swept up into his magic, his charm, and remember I was like, well, you're still pretty scared. You're shaking up. I know
Not
he's
anymore.
charming. Something else just
Apparently,
came
there was
online.
some rhythm there. There was a Rhythm Nation going on.
A lot of rhythm.
fun.
And then my sister too, she was a little intimidated working with you because you had a lot of scenes with my sister too.
She was so nice, by the way. She was really, really nice. I really liked working with her.
Yeah, but it's funny because there's no way you ever go to yourself, oh, I'm now the actor people are
Yes.
nervous around.
Exactly. It's
I'm
switches.
definitely not that guy.
You're
No,
definitely
you were.
that guy.
You were for me and Carly, I'm sure.
100%.
That's so weird because I'm so like, I'm not like, how can I say, I'm not like nervous, but I definitely have that performance energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have that going, and I'm just trying to accomplish something. So like and to me, it's all about chemistry. You know what I mean? The back and forth and the real communication. So I guess I don't notice that.
Well, by the way, I think this is where some people get in trouble with not knowing they're in a position of power because it's really weird. You don't ever see yourself as being the person you used to look up to. But you are that person, and you don't seem to have awareness of that, which is, again, how you could not even know what effect you're having on somebody.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
No, I definitely don't think of myself like that at all. And
But
I'm
it's
not
a
trying to
fact.
be humble. Well, the thing is that it's taking me like 17 years to like be a working actor.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at it for like over 20 years. And so I know how hard it is and how hard it was to like even get to be a working actor, that I don't really focus. I've never focused on like any of that kind of stuff. And it's not real to me. Because to
Right,
me-
but you've experienced it. You've been on the other side of it, though, where it's like Fury.
Well, you know what? This is crazy because, remember I told you I worked with Bradley and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Ignorance is bliss in the beginning because I just needed some cash to live and I wanted to do good. And I was like, I had a checklist of things that I needed to do to be okay, and it's the basics. It's like talking, listening, substitution, objective, goal, blah, blah, blah. Did I hit it? No, not quite as much. And I would grade myself on these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was so busy into doing that like, oh, this guy's pretty famous. Cool.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was too worried about my stuff so that I didn't notice this. And now that I've been doing it for over 20 years, seeing somebody like Bradley, I was like, wow, he handles dialogue really well. It comes so easy to him. I'm like, I ask him, he's like, it comes, he just reads it a couple times and he can, say a bunch of dialogue and say it great.
Yeah. Well, he has great diction.
Great
the dude
diction.
speaks French.
Yeah, he speaks
Fluently.
He just picked it up, that guy.
Yeah, I know. He's a savant.
Yeah, he's
verbally.
Yeah, verbal savant. Yeah, like
And then he fucking starts singing out of nowhere, and it's amazing.
yeah. He like what can he not do?
I know,
Probably
yeah.
a better question. And so I know, but
If I boarded a flight to New York City at some point and I looked in the cockpit and he was flying, I go, yeah. I'm sure he's filming a movie where he's going to be a pilot.
and I'd
he's
love it
already.
that you wouldn't be surprised, and you're like, hey, yeah, Bradley, yeah, here again.
I'm sure you're going to land the shit out of this plane. I
Yeah.
guess I won't be nervous.
So now that I'm older and I know how hard it is to make a good movie, now I appreciate it tenfold. You know what I mean? Like I did a movie with Kate Winslet, and she doesn't change anything really. She kind of plans it out. She lives in the moment. She makes some really strong choices, and that's what she does. But she did it, and then at the end of the day, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Maybe I've been doing it wrong my entire life. You know, and so there's different people that like now. That's what now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. Oddly enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering,
Even though you're in that class, you have to have some
I
recognition.
don't.
of that.
I
guess it's-
disagree because I get to star in some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm just so eager to be in a good story, like in a good movie.
Yeah, but dude, when you're in American Hustle and you're like, Christian Bale's how can someone be as good as that guy is? Everyone in that movie is just crushing. Amy Adams is. And if you walk in, and by the way, what you do is harder, I think. I'm way worse when I have very little to do. I
Oh,
have
when you're a
AC
gay player, dude?
Oh.
I used to be so nervous because, like you said, like I would have no rhythm, not rhythm like we had. Rhythm.
But yeah, you gotta
Like,
get. You
no
can't
one
even
does.
get it going. You can't even get into
going.
gear.
Yeah, and like
You
your
have to get it-
memory, like, and you know, after when you're doing a TV show, right? I asked you about it. Like after 2 months, you're like you just wake up and you know you memorize your lines and you know in the
Oh, in the
morning.
makeup
in the
trailers
makeup
sometimes,
trailers.
yeah.
And I'm like, no, not me. I memorize them 3 months before we even have to shoot.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it shows in your acting.
Yeah.
But hey, look, we're all doing well. There's a lot of different ways to skin this cat.
Yeah.
But so you admit that you well, there's a couple.
Not in the beginning, but now I do like. Well, I'm like, wow, this person and
But you have a healthy. You have had at least in the past a healthy chip on your shoulder, right?
a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah. Would you say you have a chip on? You had a chip.
I
on
had
your-
a chip on my shoulder. I think I did because it's, and it was all based on insecurity, which is really weird. It's because I'm like, I never felt I was good enough. You know what I mean? I never felt like I was good looking enough. I was charming enough, and then now when I meet somebody that's really charming, I was like, oh man, I can't. I know, like I can't compete. I'm like, this person's obviously like a beautiful person. You don't look. I'm like, I can't compete. Like, oh, this person's funnier. I'm like, man, okay, I'm just gonna take second place and be fine with it. And then it sucks when you're starring in something and you're like,
You got to be the dude.
and then you're like, oh god, I'm gonna take second place even though I'm starring in it.
But you and I have some parallels, which is we both love to party hard in our
Yeah.
younger years here in
Right?
Los
Yeah,
Angeles.
yeah.
And probably, I think, rooted in some of the same, like, just needing relief from the frustration of what an uphill slog.
Yeah,
this
well,
thing
my
is.
life was just not good, so I I battled boredom too, man. Because when it was so depressing to try. You know, I had roommates, Caucasian roommates, and they would go to me for acting advice. You know what I mean? And they would run lines. I'm like, what do you think I should do here and there? And they're auditioning for like the starring roles and this and I would call my agent and manager and say, hey, is there any way that no, they're not looking, they're looking for Caucasian now. I'm like, oh, it was such a bummer that it was depressing.
Yeah.
And I did it mainly out of boredom.
But you like drugs, right? We both like drugs a lot.
Yeah, I mean, but it was mainly like it was hard drugs like early on.
Like what age?
I think I started when I was 13.
Oh, okay.
13, something like that. Like, like all that ecstasy stuff,
Sure.
doing hard drugs. And again, it was like out of loneliness, and mainly like, I guess my biggest thing was like boredom, I think is the biggest evil for me, and then smoking weed on my own and something that I really regret because I did it too much. And then I got anxiety from it. I never had anxiety ever. I never got nervous for anything in my life. And then one day it just showed up, and it was like after smoking so much weed and drinking and frying my frying my nerves or whatnot. And that's why I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm okay.
Right.
I've done it enough. That's fine.
How old's Roman now?
He's 10 years old.
He's 10 years old.
Yeah.
And is it awesome?
It's the best, but now he's becoming his own person where normally they're like asking you like advice and daddy, can you help me with this and help me with that? And now he's just becoming his own person where like he's having play dates, with his friends where he doesn't need you very much and Minecraft and Fortnite and all this shit. But he's an avid reader.
Yeah, you said this about him, which is so cute, that he's a nerd by just innately, right?
Yeah.
He fucking loves books.
Because he reads like 1,000 pages. He can read 1,000 pages a week.
Oh, that's bonkers.
Dude, yeah.
And he's really, I've been around him. He's really cute.
Yeah.
And he's shy a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of shy, which I think is really cool. And, he's growing up a little bit differently than I was raised. Like my dad was trying to make me into some macho man.
Yeah.
But we had to like fight in our neighborhood. And if not, you'd get your ass kicked even more.
Yeah.
So it was out of necessity. And him, I definitely want to keep that shyness, like that. And where you don't have to be a tough guy.
Yeah, you don't have to prepare them for a shitty world.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you have to be real with them because it's hard out there.
Yeah,
it's not that easy.
But it is interesting because you and I are of the generation that we're in a transitional phase where we're gonna not teach our kids some of the stuff we were taught, which is appropriate. The world's gotten a lot safer. He doesn't live where you did. He doesn't live where I lived. I'm
just trying to guide the kid. You know what I mean? And talk to him like, I guess like the crash weight, like like a person. You know what I mean? And so it's a lot harder, and it takes more time to talk to him, and why things are not a great idea to do. You know what I mean? Really explain it to him and have a conversation. It's much easier to be like, don't do that.
Right.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And if he says something, you punch him in the fucking nose. Guy who hits first is going to win. That's what you do tomorrow, Monday. All right? You're going to punch him in the nose.
But I am a firm believer in that. Like, especially when you're a kid growing up in the ghetto. Like, my dad taught me to, like, even if you're going to get your ass kicked, make sure that you hit him in the nose as hard as you can.
Right. Well, it's great advice back then.
It really is. Because
Yeah.
even which I did get my ass kicked a couple times. I'm like, but if you don't, like, and I lived in a shitty neighborhood. If you didn't stick up for yourself, it was like
It's going to happen every single day.
they were like a werewolf, and you're like, oh, I can pick on this kid forever. So I remember it was in third grade. I moved to it was like St. Casimir, and there was some dude that was like 13 years old in third grade. I was like, come on, dude. What's going on here? And we got into a fight. And I just hit him in the nose as hard as I could, and then he never picked on me again, even though he beat the shit out of me.
Sometimes Monica and I argue about this, and I try to explain to her growing up that pacifism was not an option for me.
Well, no, not where we grew up, man.
Yeah.
It's totally
It was
different.
either, it's just going to happen every fucking day if you didn't do something.
What's that paper, dude?
This is the list of the many amazing things you've been in, and I just want to touch down on a couple of them.
Okay.
This is where I'm going to flatter you a lot, and you're going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be great for me.
It's going to be great for you. I love it.
All right, so I'm just going to walk you through this. This is going to be the Reader's Digest version of the ride that Peña takes. So he does Crash. We already talked about that. He's amazing. Then you do $1 Million Baby. What was it like working with Clint?
Oh, man, it was awesome. It was awesome. But again, I was so naive.
I got to imagine, though, knowing the way you work, the last thing Clint Eastwood wants to do is answer questions. He wants to fucking shoot that scene and get to lunch.
Right.
Does he want to talk for a long time about...
But he's not the writer. He's a director.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, and plus, I have a small part in that movie.
Right.
So but I don't always do that. By the way, I don't always like rehearse. There's some that you just want to,
get in there and
get
start
in there
doing it.
and start with your instincts or whatever. And I keep those instincts, but then I think it's much cooler when you get in it deeper.
It's weird. You've not really been bad, which is frustrating. Like, as I go through all these movies, you're kind of fantastic in all of them. You think you've shit the bed on a movie? Is there one you can think of that you're like, I sucked in that?
Well, I remember I got Felicity. I did Felicity.
The TV show.
Yeah, and that was in 2000. And it was one of the like this is when I started getting excited for acting, because before I just did it for the money. I'm like, I just want to get paid.
Yeah.
You know, especially a kid from the ghetto, and I was like, oh, dude, I can make like 5 figures.
Yeah.
This is sweet.
Yeah.
And so,
figures.
yeah, exactly. So, so in Felicity, I had a great audition, and it was, my part was humorous, had some comedy to it, whatever. I sucked so bad when we started filming it. I remember the first day we were filming, we did like 60 takes on like a scene where like, oh man, we really needed to go going again. I'm like, I don't even know what these people want, because I didn't know what I was doing, man.
Sure,
Comedy is so hard, dude. And I didn't not know what I was doing. And so I definitely sucked in that show.
Yeah. But you haven't had a movie where you're like, I didn't pull it out. Or maybe you tried something that maybe didn't translate. Have you ever gone down the wrong path?
No, I don't think I did. Like, for instance, like I wish that like, I wish I was better in some of them. Like in Cesar Chavez, for instance, I think I could have done more research and gotten a little bit more personal with the feeling of, because my parents were farmers in Mexico. I thought maybe I could have done a little better on that one.
I can't really even think of the comparison of what role could get offered to me where I would just be like, oh man, I got to be perfect. I mean, for you to play Cesar Chavez,
it was tough because he was not like I talked to Diego Luna about it, who directed it, and he's like, this guy is not like a charismatic guy. He's not really a great speaker, but he definitely was motivated, and, he got something accomplished, and he had like the masses listening to him, and he was not a charismatic speaker. I was like, how the hell are we going to do that, dude?
Yeah. Who wants to watch a movie about a guy who's not a charismatic speaker?
I was like, I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? So I was kind of stuck with that idea. So that's one of them.
Yeah. I God bless you for even taking that on. You do a Shooter with Wahlberg.
Yeah, that was fun.
Was that intimidating?
No.
Good for you.
I was, I don't know. I guess it was just,
Well, he likes you. We ran into him at the Super Bowl, and he seemed to really have a lot of hugs for you.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the one thing that I do remember from shooting that thing is that, like, he took me to a country club golfing. Because I golfed, like, Griffith Park and all these shitty tracks. And then I went to this place where it was, like majestic. Like, everything was perfect. I'd never been to a golf course like that.
Well, this is one of your few indulgences because you live very modestly. In fact, when I was picking you up sometimes I'd pick you up to do rehearsal because I live by you. And I pick you up in an apartment. I'm like, this guy's keeping it fucking real as hell. Yeah. He's up there living in an apartment.
Not by design, baby. Not by design, dude. I'm a brown dude, man. I don't get paid as much as, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, dude. I remember I looked myself up on Google to see the net worth.
Oh,
They had me at like 12 million. I was like, you got to be shitting. What is going on here? They think that you're super rich.
Oh, I know. Well, I had the similar experience where my mom, like, I don't know, 7 Christmases ago was like explaining, net worth, that the website, how she saw it on like the Daily Show, and she keeps talking about, and all of a sudden it occurs to me, I'm like, did you put my name in there? Like, of course, if she's that obsessed with it. And she goes, yeah. And I go, what did it say I was worth? She's like, 10 million. And I go, oh, really? Did you put Kristen in there? She's like, yeah. What did it say? She was worth 10 million. I go, so you think we're worth 20 million and we haven't like bought you a brand new car? Like, it just made me think like, oh my, they must think I'm a fucking asshole.
I know, dude. Yeah, exactly.
But so you did Observe and Report, which is really the first kind of big comedy swing you take.
I think
right?
that was the only comedy swing that I took. And I was so nervous.
Were you?
From that, but I was still. It was so weird to be nervous but have fun at the same time. And I auditioned for Jody Hill, who directed that movie, and knowing that like Seth Rogen, who I think is awesome, was going to be in that movie. I was like, oh man, this is really nerve wracking. And I came up with this character. I don't know, but I grew up like in black church.
Show Monica how your character talks. I love it.
Yeah, so I'm like, I grew up like I was the only Mexican dude in an all black choir. Well, no, not the only, but I was like one of very few. And so, like, I remember I saw this, the way I got this character is I saw this documentary about pimps. Mm-hmm. And basically, like, the camera pans up and you see dress shoes, but it's a bed. So the dress shoes are on a bed and they're dirty.
Okay.
And then it, keeps panning up and it's this dude, like, wearing a red suit with two prostitutes on the side of him. One of them's doing their nails or whatever. And the documentarist is just totally, I guess that's how you said, he's totally, like, just setting this guy up. And he's like, hey, brother, man, you got to tell me, man, what's the secret to pimping, baby? He's like, what's the secret to pimping? And the dude just looks at him. He's like, man, you got to love your bitches. And I remember it was on VHS, and I'm like, you gotta love your bitch. And I'm like, and I was like, oh man, and I kept rehearsing that on my own, like a character like that, like what would they, how would this person sound or whatever. And finally, that audition came up. And they were wanting an Eminem kind of guy, so like a white guy who was acting street. And I said, well, I'm just going to try it, man.
Yeah.
And I remember I permed my hair, gained like 20 pounds. And,
people love you in that movie. Great. The whole time we were working together, people were constantly coming up to you.
College kids love that movie.
Yeah.
It's a very polarizing movie because you either like it and really, really love it, or you absolutely hate it.
Oh, some people hated it?
Some people absolutely hate that movie. Because
what did they hate
dark.
about it?
Because it's so dark.
Oh.
And I think maybe they had the expectation of, like, Seth Rogen being, like, that lovable guy, so, like...
It gets tricky. Like, when you get so big... It can kind of trump the thing you're in.
And even if it's good, right? Even if you go to, like, like I used to love McDonald's. I can't eat McDonald's anymore. But if you go to McDonald's and you want a filet-o-fish, right? And then they give you a Big Mac, instead you're like, it's Big Macs are fantastic.
Yeah, on their own, they're beautiful.
More specifically, a Whopper, right? Because it's from Burger King. And then you're like, fuck this Whopper. I wanted a goddamn Filet-O-Fish, dude.
Right.
I think that's the way, some fans might think of it.
And so based on that, is that how you ended up on Eastbound and Down?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Because Jody directed a bunch of those, right? Or if not all of them.
Yeah, but I always imitate somebody.
Yes, this is like your thing. And you, in fact, were telling me you were imitating me.
In Chips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that to be so bizarre and interesting because I don't think I'm imitatable, but...
Yeah, but like, no, there's certain ways, the way that you set up certain phrases that I used because I'm like, how am I going to say this? And you're like, you do that. I know. Like that vibe, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And to me, like for instance, like in End of Watch, I was imitating my brother.
Oh,
because that's the way he is. Like he's a really charismatic dude, and he has this way of talking.
Yeah,
and then he's not afraid to get deep on you sometimes, and I'm more reserved than that.
Yeah,
that one.
He came to the screening of Chips in Chicago, Monica, and he brought like 35 people or so.
Oh, fun!
And the questions they were asking in the Q&A were just to fuck with us. They were like, I'm like,
a bunch of drunk cops.
Yeah, I'm like,
hey, Max. You know what? You know what I fucking like, man? I like Mike in the fucking movie. What'd you think of Mike? He was very good. And like they would say shit like that.
There was a whole section. All of a sudden, I realized, they're all together. Fun. Oh, that's Peña's brother.
And then on purpose, they were just asking you questions
to fuck with you.
You feel like an asshole. I'm like, these fucking dudes, man.
And your brother, Mike.
I gotta fucking tell you, Mike. I don't like it. I'm like, what? You don't like Crash? He's like, Mike, too much fucking talking, Mike.
He liked, and I remember he liked Chips, which was a huge feather in our cap because he doesn't really like many of the movies you're in.
No, he's that guy, and he's like quoting jokes that I forgot we told.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the one people would be so mad if I didn't bring it up. Which was Ant-Man.
Oh, so good.
Right.
Which you really
killed.
I hate using the word stole a movie, but boy, oh boy, did you just come on a left field and
well, that
deliver.
one I was imitating this dude, Pablo, who has a weird way of talking, and he's so positive. And I remember this true story, I swear. I'm like, I remember one time coming home and I was like, hey man, what happened? What you do this week? And he's like, I went to jail, dog. with a smile. And I was like, for real? And he's like, yeah, dog, I went to fucking jail, homie. And it's like always grabbing his dick. You know what I mean? He's like, I went to jail, dog. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what a weird way of talking. He's like, hey, you know what, man? I fuck with that, dog. I fuck with that movie where you sold yourself. I'm like, sold myself. And he's like, yeah, dog, you were selling yourself. And I'm like, what? And he's like, Star Maps. I'm like, apparently,
like prostitution.
Dude, I didn't even know I was doing that, dude. It was just a gig, and they needed some scenes, and I'm like, oh, I could do this. I'm like, got into some dude's car. I'm like, I didn't know I was doing like,
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I fuck with that, dog. I fuck with that. You know, with the little
Yeah.
And so that's another one that I was just obsessed with.
That guy.
Yeah, because I just get obsessed with these.
You kind of like
characters.
collect people, right?
Just a thing that me and my brother do. My brother's a fantastic mimic. One of the first mimics that did, and I think it was because of lack of vocabulary. To be honest, my brother would come in and talk to me about stories of. He's a great storyteller about high school.
Oh, sure.
And
The big time.
Getting these big cookies, and then he has this white girlfriend. I'm like, what's her name, dude? And he's like, Pam. I'm like, dude, that's so exotic. Wow. That's so white. It's so exotic. To us, it was exotic, baby. You know what I mean?
Oh, that was one of our many conversations during rehearsal. Was like, "What's your type?" And you and I are like, "My type is you, and your type is me."
Yeah,
you
exactly.
and the white girl with blonde hair.
Yeah,
I want like 4'11", olive skin.
Yeah, 4'11". I was. Yeah, I remember the when I did say Pam, it was I went. This is when I first went to Marist High School. I was like, I still had an accent, and I don't know where that accent went, but I remember saying to my buddy, I'm like, hey, bro, what's that girl's name right there? You know, the exotic one. He's like, which one's that one? I'm like, the one with the pink backpack. Like, what's her name? Who, Pam? Wow. I'm thinking to myself, what an exotic name.
Pam. It's the name of a cooking spray.
But to me, I was like, that's like names like straight up from TV. You know what I mean? Like those they use the names on TV and stuff like that. Like what is she, a host? Was she a cheerleader? You know what I mean? That's like exotic. Pam. But imagine like what
The most bland name you could ever have.
But
Sorry,
not to
sorry
me.
to our Pam
But to
listeners.
me, like Alejandra.
Yeah.
You know, Monica.
Oh, now you're talking.
You know what I mean?
The way he says it.
Yeah.
Diana.
nice.
I'm like, hey,
Monica.
Diana. And then, Diana would be like, oh, you know what? She liked it at you, but you fucked up. You know?
She liked it at you.
She liked it at you, and I'm like, well, fuck that shit. Why? When he's like, you with your fucking white girls, you know. That's never been said, but like, that's the way.
Have you had a Latina girlfriend?
Yeah, Nikki Martino.
Oh,
was
okay.
half Mexican, and then I mean, like they were like halfies.
Okay.
I mean, I'm married to like. She's like
She's as white as
like,
it gets. Her fucking name is Brie.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
she's pretty white.
Oh yeah, she's very white. She's very beautiful, very
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, super
She
smart.
doesn't take much shit, right? Which
No.
we need.
Yeah, exactly. She's all around great girl, man.
Yeah,
My best friend.
yeah, she's awesome. Well, I want to ask really quick. Your mom and dad were married through most of all that, right? Are they still? They're not still married.
No, my mom passed away when I was a kid. I mean, not when I was a kid.
I
when I
know
was
that.
like,
Now I feel absolutely terrible.
no,
I
don't worry
forgot
about
that.
it, man.
Yeah.
It was like in my early 20s.
right.
Yeah.
Then did your dad move? Your dad lives in Mexico.
My dad goes back and forth, like,
Yeah.
but he lives with his Italian girlfriend in Cicero.
Is he pumped that you're a movie star?
I'm not a movie star. I'm a working actor.
Okay. Well, I would imagine if you're down in Mexico
Okay.
in Cicero, you would label what you're doing as a movie star.
I don't know. It's so weird. I definitely don't think of myself that way, but I appreciate it.
But the dad must.
No, the dad doesn't watch a lot of stuff of mine.
Okay, but what's his relationship with you doing this? Is it mind blowing? I mean, if he left Mexico as a farmer and went to Chicago in the 70s, and his son now is in a movie with Brad Pitt, does that not blow his mind, or he doesn't
Not
give a shit?
really, because he had to work so much. We're not like super tight.
Okay.
So, he's never been to Los Angeles to come visit me.
He hasn't.
Never, dude, in 23 years or 4 years. Or
Is that
whatever.
not heartbreaking? That would make me sad.
It is, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, man. You know what I mean? I basically was, I was, raising myself or whatever, like, when I was a teenager.
Do you think there's different cultural expectations of like what relationship someone who was born in Mexico and came here? Do you think there's like a different bar he feels like he has to hit?
He was just meant to support,
Right.
you know, and
Monica and I were just talking
he
about
thought
this.
that was his job, which he did.
In the
did a great
70s
job.
was kind of your job.
It was kind of your job, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then so he supported, and now I've kind of like in a weird way forgiven him for not being there, you know, and now we're kind of becoming more friends, and to be honest, it's a little forced,
Sure.
you know, because I got to call him up and whatever. Like he's seen my kid maybe 3 times or whatever, but that's just, you know, that like sometimes life just is like that, and you just gotta have to take it. I'm like, and so I have a good friend, you know, that paid for me to be where I'm at right now.
That's a very healthy, evolved viewpoint. I had a lot of dad issues and things that I was resentful at him about. I was not that graceful.
Oh, really?
No, I was like, why can't you be the fucking guy I want you to be?
Yeah,
I
think-
deserve this.
But also, I was such a loner and like acting, like as you know, like you know, in comedy or whatever, like like it's comedy. Both of you guys know.
Yeah.
You know, doing this it can be lonely.
Yes.
And you have to like at the end of the day, it's like you want to be good. And the only person that's like you can go to an acting class, you can do whatever, but literally you just have to work on yourself.
Yeah, but you've had this incredible ride, and don't you want your dad to say, "Oh my God, I am so proud of you and blown away by what you've accomplished"?
I guess I don't really need it, you know?
Okay.
Like you know, when people like my work, I'm like, that's really cool. More for me, I'm like, oh, how can I do something different? How can I make the game, for me, exciting? You know what I mean? Like I'm still getting better. You know, like I'm like gonna work with a vocal coach now to like work on my diction, and that's gonna take me a year or 2.
Right. You love learning.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like
Yeah.
I do like you know.
You get obsessed with things and you just start going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a rabbit hole, but I do.
Well, I'm
like
going to say
learning.
a rabbit hole.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. Okay, Narcos.
Yeah,
That's what you're in right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm in right now, and I was really nervous doing that. You know, to do that project because in my mind, like the DEA wasn't like the DEA portion of it wasn't like the strongest portion for me.
Right.
For me.
Well,
Even
that first season, the dude who played Pablo Escobar
took everybody by storm.
Oh my God, was he amazing?
Oh, he was so good.
The pilot of the first season of Narcos is I think the best pilot I've ever seen in my life. It's mind blowing.
I remember watching it and thinking, wow, this is almost, they captured Latin America better than most movies.
Oh, 100%.
I could not believe how good this was.
The richness, the color,
Yeah,
you could feel the
yes.
humidity.
The humidity, that stuff, like it. Because you know when you're doing movies, they don't want you to sweat or whatever, or they put on that fake sweat.
Right.
And here, it's
Heaven
like,
forbid you're actually
and-
sweating.
Yeah, exactly. And then like you have the salt stain on your shirt.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, that's a real shirt. Or however they're doing it. And I had met Eric Newman, who was the showrunner of that show, and he's like, we're thinking about Kiki Camarena, and I read his bio on Wikipedia,
Sure.
and then Time Magazine, and I thought, wow, this is really amazing.
So you're playing a real life
DEA agent, yeah, exactly, who had a chip on his shoulder, and was very stubborn in the way that he wrote. And you know what? Oddly enough, I thought, I'm like, man, as an actor, I think innately, even if you're doing a drama or whatever, you're like, I hope people like what I'm doing. I hope people like the character that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then while we were filming, I was like, you know what? I'm going to play it like this guy who, if they don't like me, fine, as long as they respect me, which was a big thing for me because
Interesting.
you want to add some humor, you want to add some things like some, like pet the dog kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
You pet a dog in a movie, forget about it. They fall in love with you.
Oh, I didn't know that trick. I got to get some dogs in my
trick.
shit.
Yeah, you got to get some dogs up in your shit, dude.
The first scene is just me scratching a dog's belly, and then I can like hit people
You're like,
and
oh, forget about it, dude. Like, say you're playing an assassin,
Yeah.
but you're giving your little poodle like a bath.
oh
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Scrubbing it. Oh my God. You're like,
Yeah.
all the dog lovers are going to be like, I fucking love
like you're
that.
actually bathing the dog of the woman you're cheating on your your wife with, but it just all gets neutralized.
Yeah, and then you have to kill her, right? But you wash the dog.
And you take the dog with you.
And then
protect
you
the
realize
dog.
that you're washing the blood off the dog.
That's right. That's what occurs to you. But Monica and I watched the first episode of this season. I haven't gotten further yet. And it's totally great.
It starts cooking on 3 because the first 2 are always establishing episodes.
But all I was going to say is it's totally good. And then soon as Mike Peña gets on the screen, you're like, okay, now I'm fucking paying attention.
I'm in,
That's not a dig on anyone else, but you are predictably, as you always are, like fucking electric.
Oh man,
You're so good.
I appreciate
it's
it,
pretty
brother.
bonkers how good you are.
Dude,
that kid in the wheelchair was dead right. You were much better.
I can't wait for you guys to watch it, like, and get into it. Like, you got to get into 3 is really amazing. It's shot like a movie.
Yeah, I'm definitely going.
biased.
I'm going the whole way. But you shot in Mexico City?
Yeah, and you know what? My parents were, oddly enough, my parents are Mexican, and I consider myself like a Mexican American. And when I got there, what's so funny is that they think you're an American.
Well, you've said this. It was so funny because I just assumed, you speak Spanish, you're Latino, they love you. This was even when we went down and did those Latin TV shows. You're like, no, I don't get a pass. They think I'm a fucking American with a bad accent.
Yeah, they can tell that I have an American accent, even though I spoke Spanish first.
Right.
Yeah, so they can tell when you're like born from a Latin country, and because you speak Spanish so quickly.
Oh, the people
all
who
the
speak
small
it,
words,
right?
all the small words that and you can fully express yourself. And then as soon as I speak Spanish, and I think I did a pretty good job, they're like, "You American, no?"
Americano.
Yeah, Americano. Like the coffee. Yeah.
Well, that, by the way, what a shit deal where you're not, as a kid, you're not fully accepted here. Then you think, well, at least I got my. If I go to Mexico, I'll be embraced with open arms. And
I know.
You're like a man without a country in a weird way.
There should be a movie about that, like in Limbo or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
'Cause it
I
really
found
is.
that depressing that you weren't like. I assumed you were celebrated by all Mexicans naively.
No, not at all. I'm like, oddly enough, you know what's really famous there is like all the soap opera actors.
Yeah.
Those guys crush.
They love their soaps there, right?
And I mean, here's the thing. I remember growing up and we at 6 o'clock every day we would watch Cristal, which was a telenovela, and we would get it into it so bad. Like we thought that was some of the best acting of all time.
Sure.
It's just as good as Goodfellas. Like
On the waterfront.
On the waterfront, this guy needs to pump it up a little bit because this is not what Cristal would do.
Is this guy mumbling? What's he doing?
This guy mumbling. Where's the passion, baby?
Grab that woman firmly by the shoulders
Yeah.
and shake her while you're talking to her.
Dude, I remember like there was like some stupid like plot lines, like like this woman was mad at this other woman, and I remember that she threw like battery acid at her,
Okay.
and then there was like smoke. Okay.
Yeah.
There
why
was
not?
smoke, and I'm like, Mom, can that really happen? She's like, and we're like, dude, you got to be aware of battery acid now. And there was all these crazy things that happened in telenovelas that we really believed can happen.
Sure. Were you nervous at all working in Mexico City? I feel like I would be a little nervous. I think I've succumbed to these, like, I have a fear of kidnapping or something. I've bought into that.
Secuestros. Yeah. Well, it didn't help like that. Like the location manager got killed.
That is not helpful.
Oh, wow.
But that was in Colombia, right?
No. That was in Mexico.
Oh, it was?
Tragedy, man, and it's awful.
Yes.
Right? They beefed up the security, and so that was a good thing that they did that because
Yeah, like when you drove to set, were you with security and stuff?
I was with a bodyguard, and I was with an assistant, and I was with a driver,
Okay.
a specific driver.
Who could get out of shit.
Yeah, who can definitely weave in and out. And
I would have loved to have been your driver down there.
yeah, oh man, dude, remember the first time, dude? I think we did the promo for chips. Guy picks me up in like a station wagon. I'm like, what is this, dude? And it was so fucking fast.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make it known how fast this son of a bitch is.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, he wanted to get a rise out of me, and he got it. He ran through a stop sign. He's like, "No, those are just suggestions."
Roll throughs.
Yeah,
I've
I got
heard
the
that
map
many
of the
those are
times.
merely suggestions. I was like, "We got to fucking Santa Monica in 12 minutes."
Yeah.
I was like, "How the hell did this happen?" He's
He
like, "Don't worry."
knows like the lights that you're allowed to drive through, like red lights you can drive
there's a
through and not
handful of
get
them in the city.
arrested. He
Yeah.
knows all of them.
Yeah, he knows all of them, which maybe shouldn't be said. But I was the inner monologue was like, this motherfucker.
He's trying to
Son of
kill
a bitch.
me.
I'm like, white privilege. No, I'm just kidding.
White privilege. Amen. So, Narcos Mexico is out now.
Yeah, Diego Luna crushes, man.
He's a beast, right?
Dude, and I didn't know how big of a star this guy was, but like women absolutely adore this guy.
Yeah, he's very sexy.
Yeah,
Do you
he's
think he's sexy, Monica?
I don't know.
Okay, you're not sure who he is.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
that's fair.
unsure, but I'd like to see a picture so I can
Well, he
weigh
was in
in.
that
we can
famous.
bring
He was
it
in
up.
that movie "Y Tu Mama Tambien." Is that what it's
Mamá
called?
también, yeah.
Oh.
He was one of the two young.
But they're
sexy
both
boys.
good looking
confirm,
dudes.
let's confirm.
They're both good looking
They're
dudes.
both hot as hell
Okay.
and sexy, and they have
And
great
hot
rhythm.
and- oh, yeah. I do recognize him. And yes, of course.
God, you know what? I'm a little chubby right now, and I'm taking pictures with this guy, and then you can see you're like, wow, this guy's just clearly much better looking than I am. You know what I mean?
No.
Well, I think we could both agree that there's no way Diego Luna is on a podcast somewhere and he said, no, Michael Peña or Dax Shepard, then showed someone a picture and that person went, oh, yeah, I would love
That's
to
not
be with
true.
that.
That's not true. You
I
guys
think
are
it's safe to
stupid.
assume that no one's ever held up a picture of either of us and someone like fucking got faint.
Oh, duh.
Well, Michael Peña, I had such a fun life experience with you. I mean, we had a full year together, and it was so fun.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm on the other side of all the heartbreak of the experience. But there were just so many moments where, like, we went to that test. We tested at 91 or whatever.
Yeah,
it
that was amazing,
What a
man.
night we had.
Yeah.
People were partying.
We opened up against Beauty and the Beast. That was
that's a great
idea. Whoa, we're doing what? Dude, I thought, by the way, people thought that movie was going to make 40 million, and then it makes 200 million.
Yeah. Oopsies.
And then it's literally, that movie got a little rapey on our movie.
Yeah.
Because it was
a little handsy.
Little handsy, because it was, dude, that movie.
Also, you know what also
took
overperformed was the not the Mutant
Starship
Ninja
Troopers?
Yeah. What was that show? That
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers
Yeah.
came out swinging.
That one came out swinging like
Yeah.
those. So literally,
Gypsies took a
it
little
was
beating there.
unbelievable, man. Like that, those movies made so much money.
Yeah.
That it took every demographic, and it was just tough to go against those guys.
But the life experience was really fantastic.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
I loved it, man.
And if that had been a gigantic hit, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be in Mexico City with security detail directing something. So I'm grateful.
But you're crushing now.
I'm happy as hell.
Yeah, right on.
And I love you, and I hope you'll come back in here when you promote one of the numerous movies that you're a part of.
Yeah,
and,
right on.
I adore you.
Awesome. Same here, bro.
And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman.
My name is Fact. I want to check into the facts, and go to heaven with 7-Eleven, 11, do bum, 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 bum. What's that silly patty cake game that sounds like that? What is that thing? You go to heaven, and
Yeah,
patty
it's
cake.
Miss Mary Mac.
She checked the fact.
I think it's really Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black.
Go
With
to
silver
heaven.
buttons all down her back.
She went to heaven.
No,
Don't they say
I don't
heaven at
think
some
so.
point? This is a very pro-heaven rhyme.
You really
I think it's brought to you by the Heaven Ad
by
Council.
heaven? Wow, I don't remember, but that really brought me back to being a
Good.
schoolgirl.
Oh, good.
Yeah, on the playground.
You were even smaller mouse?
Oh, very.
What is the name of a baby mouse? It should have a really cute name.
A
Those
meese.
Little stupid whiskers they have and the twitchy nose.
You think they're cute for real?
I do, and I think it's preposterous that I think rats are disgusting and mice are adorable. They're
That's-
the exact same.
They're the same. And if I'm being honest, I don't like either.
When I lived in Dearborn, Michigan, with a bunch of roommates, it wasn't the cleanest place. It wasn't the nicest apartment. It was above this tchotchke store on Michigan Avenue. And we had a little mouse that lived in our house.
A pet.
And it did the same thing every time. We would be all watching TV, and one of us would go, it's here. And it would just cross the living room and stand in this arch and stare at us until we would look, and then it would run away really quick. But if we wouldn't look forward, it would just watch us watch TV. It was so cute. He's kind of like Ralph, the little mouse Ralph from the books who drove a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was much like having Ralph live with us rent free. We had a tenant, basically.
Oh,
I had a cute little mouse roommate.
that's fun.
Yeah, maybe that's why I like him.
And no one was scared of him or her.
No. This mouse was the size of a 2 ping pong balls.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I always had this thought that I was going to open my eyes in the middle of the night and it would be on my pillow just watching me sleep.
Yeah, and that didn't perturb you.
It didn't, because what's funny is I don't associate mice with biting me.
What about droppings?
Man, if this thing was the size of a ping pong ball, I don't even know I would have been able to see its droppings.
Ooh, even scarier.
Yeah. Oh, but they were all, so my roommates at the time too were all vegan. There was a period where we hadn't embraced this occupant and we were trying to catch
Get him
it.
out, of course.
And of course, because they were all vegan, a mousetrap was completely out of the question for them. So we had for months this bucket in our living room with a little ramp up to it and peanut butter at the bottom of the bucket. And that was going to be the humane way to capture this thing. But what's really funny when people have these ideas is and then what? So you've captured it and then you toss it out on Michigan Avenue? What do you think its survival odds are there?
Yeah.
A very busy thoroughfare.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that you had pets.
I didn't know you had mice pets.
I had no idea. Did you have other pets growing up?
We had, when my mom and dad were married and we lived in the country on a couple acres, we had a German Shepherd that just made himself our pet. He was the neighbor's dog, but he always hung out at our house.
Oh.
And eventually that neighbor just brought over his dog dish and a big bag of dog food. And they were like, all right, he's yours. And his name was Dog. That was his name. He's a German Shepherd. And my mom's favorite story to tell about Dog was that being a German Shepherd, he's very protective, right? We lived in
Do
the
you
country.
think he picked you because you're shepherds?
Perhaps.
Oh.
So my mom, her routine was she at that time was a stay-at-home mom, and I played in the sandbox all day long, right? I would always be outside with my Tonka trucks playing, and my mom would be cleaning the house and doing dishes and making meals, and she would just probably every, 20 minutes glance outside to see that I was still in the sandbox. Mm-hmm. So she glanced outside at some point, and I was not in the sandbox.
Oh, my God.
So then she went outside, and then she's running all over the yard looking for me. We had this long driveway, and then middle road was the road we lived on. And eventually she heard beeping and stuff. She went out to the road.
No.
I am in the road
No.
at 2 years old with my Tonka truck. There's a line of traffic in both directions, and Dog is just circling me. And when people would get out to try to move me, his hair would stand up and he would bark and chase them to their car. And then he'd run back and then just circle me. What a good boy, huh?
A nice
And what a
boy.
bad mommy.
What a bad boy Dax and a nice boy Dog.
You can't be mad at a
I'm mad
2-year-old
at
for
you.
taking his Tonkas out to the asphalt to see how they perform.
My God.
My God. Oh, this is back to my...
You
how many
just-
times I've avoided
Yes,
death.
you've just escaped death so often. I can't even.
I don't think I have. You've heard that theory of mine.
Yeah, you think you died all these times.
Yeah. I think when you die for final, and then you go to the pearly gates, and you're like, oh, I guess I died. It was a good life, and here we are. And then that person laughs. And
Yeah.
goes, oh, you think this is the first time you died? No, you died when you were 2. You died when you were 6. You died when you were 9. And then they would flash and show you, maybe not the actual death, but just remind you of that time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, really? You think you lived through that rollover accident in the median of US 23 going 85 miles an hour?
Yeah.
You think you lived through that, huh?
Yeah, I like that theory.
It's fun.
I don't think is true, but I
course
like
not.
it.
Of course it's not true, but of course it's not.
Well, I mean, this conversation makes me feel scared and superstitious, but we can keep having it. I don't feel like I've
You haven't died.
had any deaths yet.
Okay. Well,
Trying to
good. Then you've
think.
got a bunch, like free lives in a video game. You've probably got like 20 free lives. I must be getting towards the end.
Yeah. No.
Well, hey, it's okay.
You know what I've decided about myself
What?
is because I'm scared that something's going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
That's my burden. Like the thing is not going to be my burden. It's the fear that I'm going to.
Expire
me.
prematurely.
Yeah, just like living with that is the thing I'm tasked with, not the
Yeah.
actually getting it. I have to be honest, there's something about my theory that I find comfort in. Like
Because you're doing all this worrying, you're going to be saved from something tragic.
well, that's the whole point of it is like, yeah, I'm probably not gonna have an aneurysm,
No.
even though I'm constantly afraid of that.
Yeah.
And then that's the thing I have to struggle with is this constant fear. That's the thing I have to overcome, not the aneurysm. But I kind of find some comfort in that because I'd rather have that than have the aneurysm.
But here's what's crazy about worrying about an aneurysm. If we just really work this through, let's get on the chalkboard and work out the math.
Okay, yeah.
An aneurysm, boom, you're done, right? So you won't know you had an aneurysm. So you're not going to know you had an aneurysm, nor are you going to feel sad that you had one.
But my parents are going to be so
You
sad.
won't know that.
But I know that now.
Yeah,
Now. I know that suffering is going to be horrible. I guess you won't care.
Not at all. I'll be like, what a way to go.
I know. God, I guess I can remove you from my
You should.
docket.
Yeah. But remove me from your fear list because I don't want to be a part of any of your fears. While you ruminate on that, I do want to apologize publicly to people. And it was quite ironic that we talked about misophonia for a very long time on the Sarah Silverman episode. And then one and or both of us got to chewing on some gum in the fact check, almost as if it had been planned to fuck with people.
I know. People
was-
didn't like it.
It was just an oversight.
It was a complete oversight, and we're very sorry. And the problem is, we're not afflicted by misophonia.
Yeah, if you're chewing gum in the mic, I don't mind one bit.
No.
I am curious because people complained, which is their right in a free liberal democracy to do so.
Sure.
But it can be misleading. I start thinking everyone has misophonia.
Me too.
But I actually enjoy the sounds of chewing. Like even when Sarah had brought up the guy from the fish sex movie, that he would chew those hard candies.
Yes.
That was literally my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
The way he would manipulate those hard candies in his chompers.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me at all.
I like it.
You, in fact, like it.
So I wonder if, is it that 90% would enjoy hearing us eat a big Dagwood sandwich on here? And then we're not doing that because of the I don't know.
Yeah,
Wish we had some
well,
hard data.
It's okay. We're going to steer clear of any food or gum in our mouth.
But we were thinking about doing a food podcast. And we were thinking about the challenges of that because,
Misophonia.
you'd want to be at the restaurants explaining what you're eating and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And people would have their mouth full and they'd be talking and everything. And again, that would be fine with me, but I'm wondering, would 70% of the population hate that? Is this a waste of time?
I'm also self-conscious about my cold. Like my voice sounds weird and they may not like that.
Yeah.
It might trigger their misophonia.
Yeah.
My weird voice.
Probably not, but
But you never know.
you don't know.
Michael Peña we had on.
Oh, sweet, sweet Mike Peña.
Yeah.
Who's currently working with Ryan Hansen right now in Fiji.
That's right.
Those lucky bastards.
I know.
They both have kids, and they're not with their kids. They're just swimming in the ocean as free human beings on planet Earth. I
Yeah.
see their pictures on Instagram, and it makes me hate them.
Oh, wow.
I hate them.
Okay.
No, I
relax.
love both of them, and I'm glad they're working together.
I know how fun.
Yeah, and it seems they're really getting along, too. When you have two friends and you don't really know and you're hoping for the best.
Oh, but it could take a turn.
It could, and that would be heartbreaking. But no, it seems like it's going like gangbusters down there in Fiji.
He was so likable. I mean, I know. I've met him before, obviously. We did a scene together.
Yeah, you guys. Well, first of all, you're scene partners.
We're scene partners.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
But I did notice, we were just talking about this the other day. like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times throughout this, I will see that Monica has a certain opinion of someone when they arrive, or maybe it's just no opinion.
Yeah, no opinion.
And then visibly, her whole body posture changes, and she's looking in their direction in a certain way, and she has this smile on her face. And I've seen it now 7 or 8 times, and it's so fun for me to witness. And this was definitely one of those times.
Yeah.
You had just this really warm, happy smile listening to his story, and it made me so happy.
I feel like he just made me feel so comfortable.
Yeah, he is not a hoity-toity, highfalutin anything.
Yes.
Even though he's such an esteemed actor, and he could kind of carry himself like a fucking brat, he
Oh,
does not.
Totally. Well,
And he genuinely seems to be completely unaware of his status.
that's one of my facts
Okay,
to check.
great.
Is he thinks that he is not in the same tier as these people he's working with. And he's so wrong. He's completely on their level.
Yeah.
And he's a big movie star.
Yes, and I've seen him in scenes with the best of the best. I'm always drawn to looking at him.
I know.
I can't keep my eyes off of him.
He's so well. It was also funny because he was saying that they used to like soap operas, Spanish soap operas, telenovelas,
Telenovelas.
and I was thinking, I was like, how ironic, because if that was his first foray into acting, into watching people act, like he is so natural.
Oh yeah.
He couldn't be more understated.
Yeah.
And just
But what is crazy about that too is that I think if I have any zone of acting I think I'm good at, is that I think I'm pretty natural.
You are, yeah.
And we have completely opposite approaches to get natural.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
true.
fascinating. Like his naturalness is very, very complicated.
Oh, nuanced. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny about him is he comes across very natural and easy and understated, but he's always doing a character.
Yes. 100%.
So it's not like when I'm natural acting, it's because I'm just being me.
Yep, me too.
And I'm just saying other words, but I'm me.
Yep.
And he is never doing that. So it's so impressive to be that natural while doing a character.
Yeah. And it was a revelation to me midway through Chips when he said, I'm playing you. And I was like, that's bizarre. And I guess now that you pointed out some of the things you're doing, I guess you have picked up my cadence.
Do you think he was also doing some physical things you do?
Oh, I wonder.
Yeah.
I should know. I've seen the movie 1,100 times.
But it's hard to see yourself. Like it'd be very hard to pick out.
This reminds me of one of the funniest experiences I ever had. It was when Nate Tuck and I were in level 1 or 2 of the Groundlings. They had as an exercise, we got assigned people in the class, and we had to go improv as if we were that person,
Yep.
right?
I have a similar story.
And Nate got me. Mm-hmm. And so Nate gets up and he starts improving, and he starts moving spastically around the stage. Like his arms are flailing. It looks ridiculous.
Sure.
And everyone is laughing. I mean, it was the most unanimous, oh, he nailed Dax of any of the people who were doing one another.
Everyone knew it.
Yeah, and I was like, for real? That's spot on for me?
I know.
Oh, it can be very,
It's hard.
yes, it can be very revealing.
Eye-opening. Yes.
Yes.
I think I already told this story on the podcast. I had a almost exact similar situation in college. We had the first week of my freshman year, first acting class, we all had to pick names out, and then that Friday we were supposed to come in as that person. And I was this girl, and it was so accurate that she cried.
Oh, but not with joy?
No.
Oh.
Not with joy.
Did you feel terrible?
Well, I felt terrible and proud that I did a good job. I like
Sure.
doing a good job, you know.
What were some of the things that you had latched
Well,
onto?
it was because and everyone knew it was her quickly.
Yeah.
And by the way, she's so special. She's wonderful. And there's not like she didn't like have like a gimp or
anything.
something. Yeah. Are you allowed to say that?
What? A
Gimp?
Gimp? Yeah,
Gimp
I think
leg?
so. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
No, so she didn't have that, but she sort of carried herself in a kind of like, don't notice me.
Yeah, like a wallflowery type of.
Yeah, and even just in the way she walked, it was just like her shoulders were a little bit like turned in. Her head was like always a little bit down.
Yeah.
And so I think it came off as sort of like a sad person.
Right.
And then it made her sad and she cried.
Oh my God, that's
And
a terrible
She ended up
story.
being one of my best friends. Yeah.
Remember when I got Jess's walk down perfect?
Yes. And he has a specific walk.
He has the most specific walk, and I really nailed it that time.
You did.
He was laughing so hard because he was like, "There's no way it's that preposterous."
Yeah.
And you were like, "That it's." I wouldn't even know it was. If I was only looking from the waist down, I would think Jess entered the room.
It was good. I think then you tried to do me, and I thought that was incorrect.
Okay.
Remember?
Yeah, I know how you walk. I told you I can always tell who's walking down the hallway in the house.
Yeah.
You have the most specific pitter patter.
I know. I wonder why.
I don't know. It's almost like you walk, like you bounce side to side like a penguin a little bit. Oh. Yeah.
Cool. Cute. This fact check, I mean, I already gave one that was only kind of a fact, is slim facts, almost nothing. Okay, so he mentioned a character in Train Spotting that quit drugs, but he couldn't remember his name. He said maybe Johnny Boy. I think it's Sick Boy.
Sick Boy, yeah.
Yeah.
Super good looking actor that was dating Angelina Jolie after they did the weird roller skate movie or hackers movie.
Oh.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah, I think
Let's
that's who
look him up.
played Sick Boy. Now, Rob, here's your opportunity to get on that mic. So you're going to notice something new. I thought it was weird that you can hear Rob in the background. You know he's here, and now you're going to hear him in quadrophonic stereo sound. Maybe not.
I don't have an answer to this.
Did you find it, Monica?
Is Johnny Lee Miller correct?
Great. And I think he was romantically linked to Angelina Jolie at one time.
He's very attractive based on the picture I just saw.
So fucking hot. It's crazy.
Okay, so Michael, do you call him Mike?
I do sometimes because his brother calls him Mike.
Yeah.
That's the thing you've noticed about me. It's like my friend Andrew Panay. Everyone calls him Andrew Panay. But when I found out his parents call him George or
Jorge?
Well, Jorgo, because he's Greek.
Oh.
You can call him George or Jorgo. So I have only called George since because I want to be on that familial
Inside.
tier.
I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
If somebody calls me Mon and we're not close enough, I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that. You're not
I've never
allowed.
called you Mon.
Well, you're allowed.
Well, I appreciate it, but it doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah, you never have done that. No. And my mom doesn't either. She calls me Monty.
I like Monty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, because her name is Kristen, a lot of different people have things that are inside for her. So a lot of her friends from Veronica Mars will call her K-Bell. Like
Yeah.
her early career, they call her K-Bell.
I know. And I don't.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And the funniest was my stepdad always called her Chris.
Right.
And the only other person that calls her Chris is Jason Doring from Veronica Mars.
Yeah, that's right.
It cracks me up when I hear people call her Chris.
Somebody else called her Chris the other day, and I was like,
Maybe my mom?
no, it wasn't your mom. Was it Ryan? It might have been Ryan Hansen.
Possibly.
He maybe did it because he's been spending a lot of time with Jason Doring.
Yeah, that's quite likely.
So that's part of it.
I'm the only one that calls her Belle.
Yep.
But it seems I've heard a couple people refer to her that. Oh, Carly calls her Belle too.
Oh, I call her mom,
Baby.
baby, wife. When I'm typing about her, gossip,
Yeah.
when I'm sending to
When
the
you're
gossip columns.
Yeah, selling stories too.
No, when I'm typing, I always type KB.
Yeah, it's the easiest. But the other thing about Kristen Annie Bell is that everyone calls her Annie. She is not Kristen.
From her family.
Everyone from Michigan calls her Annie.
Yeah.
And Aunt Annie. And in
Right.
fact, we went over when I was back in Michigan in May with Delta, I stopped by her sister's house, Sarah, and Tom's house. And Tom and I were outside talking about Kristen, and he was calling her Kristen. And then Sarah came out and she goes, why are you doing that? Stop calling her Kristen. It's Annie. And he goes, I just felt weird. I don't know. He knows her as Kristen. Yeah, she is Annie.
Yeah, it's so funny.
I think they feel like I'm calling her a stage name. I mean, it is her name, but no one called her Kristen.
It's definitely her name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone just calls me Dax. A lot of my friends in Detroit call me Dad or Shepard.
Your mom calls you Daxer.
Yeah, Daxer. That was my nickname.
Sometimes I call you Daxy. Sometimes Kristen calls you Daxy. I've
I
heard
like both those. Mm-hmm. But at home, it's Shepard. I don't have a single friend that calls me Dax.
Ooh, I kind of like it. Some people call me Padman, and I like that.
Yes, going by the last name is very cool.
Nate Tuck does that.
Yep, of course. And I call Tuck quite often Tuck. It's kind of like maybe a guy's sports thing, even though I didn't play team sports. I think that's where it comes from.
Maybe.
Because the coach is always like, Smith, Bailey, Jenkins.
It's kind of a sexy move to call someone by their last name.
Yep, I agree.
There's something sexual about it. Okay, so he mentioned Buddhist and past lives. And I was like, do they believe in past lives? But they do.
Because isn't the Dalai Lama, I don't know nothing about Buddhism other than the whole craving thing, which I like. Mm-hmm. And life is suffering. Yeah. Isn't the Dalai Lama always somehow the spirit of the, like, isn't he reincarnated?
Well, there's new Dalai Lamas.
But it's not the same spirit?
I don't think so. Okay. But I don't know. I don't know enough about it either. I'd like to learn more about Buddhism, though.
Me too. It seems like they've got some shit figured out.
Me too.
Yuval Harari does the best job of explaining it to date for me.
Do you want to share it?
I think I have on here before, but he said what's commonly known about Buddhism is life is suffering, right? And he said, well, that's really incomplete. That's not actually what Buddhists are saying. They are saying that the human's desire to be in a different state of mind at all times is the root of suffering. So if you're uncomfortable and you want to be comfortable, it's actually the craving of comfort that is suffering. Right. And that even when you're happy, your mind naturally goes to, well, how long am I going to feel this happy? Yep. How long will this last? Will it get higher? And it's that internal racket, that dialogue of wanting to either extend happiness and pleasure or end discomfort is where the real source of suffering lies. Yeah. And then if you just accept all the states you're in and allow your body to experience them, that diminishes suffering. Yeah. Which is, I find that to be very true.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought that was an addict thing, but I think it's not now.
No,
it's a human
that's
thing.
Human, yeah. Rebirth is one of the foundational doctrines of Buddhism, along with karma, nirvana, and moksha. Ooh. Some Buddhist traditions assert that no self doctrine means that there's no self, but there is inexpressible self, which migrates from one life to another. So that's more like the spirit, I guess, is like you said. But I don't know about the Dalai Lama.
Should we invite the Dalai Lama on to explain this to us?
Oh my God, I love it.
It's so funny. I'm triggered by the Dalai Lama.
Why?
Because I don't believe that humans should be treated as deities or seen as deities or more special than any other person. Yeah. And probably the Dalai Lama doesn't see himself that way, but so many other people do that I'm like, guys, there's no, there isn't a God walking around on planet Earth.
Yeah, I agree.
It just feels like, hero worship of the worst variety. So I'm just always like, and he's probably a lovely person, and I probably would love everything he has to say, but I'm just like, you're not special. I want to say you're not special.
Yeah, I understand that. It feels a little uncomfortable to give like blind, worship to someone who maybe hasn't earned it.
Well, that goes poo-poo in the morning.
Given?
You're born the Dalai Lama.
You're born that, yeah. But I agree, and you feel like that about the Pope, I assume, too.
I have big reservations about the Pope, even more than the Dalai Lama, because, also let me just say the cynical side of me as well is like, well, the Dalai Lama is so enlightened. Why is he always with like movie stars? Like they can't be the highest rung on the spiritual transcendent spectrum in Buddhism that would warrant his keeping them as company. Like it feels like, oh, he succumbs to the same thing everyone else is. Like he wants to be buddies like with Richard Gere like I do. That's not too self-actualized.
Well, I don't know if he's always with celebrities.
The pictures I see, of course.
Yeah, the pictures that you're going to see are the ones of him with celebrities.
Or you could probably make the argument that like the Dalai Lama is trying to spread a certain message and that these people amplify that message.
That's
so
true.
It probably is a means to an end. It just feels a little dicey.
Sure, you're right. Yeah,
And the
you're
Pope-
right. It's weird to label that.
The Pope's easier for me to dislike because, you know, they're a business, which bothers me. You know, the Roman Catholic Church, I think, is the biggest landowner in the world. They, you know, there's so much money funneling up into that crazy ornate lifestyle they have. And I don't know, it's troubling to me. Although I dig the new Pope.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he kind of got me.
Yeah.
I just don't think humans should be elevated on that level.
You know what? You're right. Anytime you have that, it's a fine line between cult worship.
I don't understand why the Pope doesn't have sex and stuff.
I guess it's not pure.
But it is. It's like the purest thing people can do.
Well, I mean,
yeah, that's the problem. It's all wound up in this. Yeah, why is that pure? That's bonkers.
I know, except that, I mean, sex does complicate things, don't you
between
think?
siblings, for sure. I don't think a person who's lonely and is not permitted to have a partner and experience life on planet Earth in a partnership should not be guiding the people on planet Earth. It seems like, well, this person's living in this very artificial, arbitrary structure, so that person doesn't even have a grasp on what people are doing.
I think what it's trying to say maybe is
they're sacrificing this to be closer to this thing. Right?
Yeah, and also that maybe they aren't tempted by the same human.
Which is utter bullshit because we've seen the results of all these priests who don't have normal relationships with other humans. So, I mean, to me, it's that verdict's in.
Oh, yeah.
It is not a way for people to live.
It's not a great way to go.
Yeah.
Leads to some pathology.
Also, if the Pope makes you happy, that's awesome. I'm genuinely happy if the Pope makes you happy. And if the Pope says things to you that resonate in your life and it makes your life better, then I'm all for that too.
Me too, and the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
You said it's never happened that someone held up a picture of either of you and thought like, oh my God, that's such a sexy person.
Right.
And got faint. And that's not true.
You don't think that's true?
No.
Did you find someone that said they looked at a picture of you
No, but I know that that's not true.
Do you think anyone's had to change MeUndies?
Yeah, I do. I think they've looked at pictures and needed a change.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having that opinion of me.
You're welcome.
But my point is, I don't think anyone was ever, before I was famous, ever was I walking down a street and a woman turned back 180 to check me out further. I don't think that's ever happened.
I know, but you don't know that that's true. And
well, I do know because I'm turning 180 to look at them, and I've never seen anyone looking back.
No. What are you talking about?
Maybe that's why I drive like a
dated
knucklehead.
Such pretty.
That's because I got a good personality, and I can dance.
You do
and I'm
have a
funny.
good person. You can dance.
You can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. But if your friend's named Dax, and if he does a dance, then you might lay with him.
That was nice. That's it.
That's all?
Yeah.
All right, let's finish it up on just, again, you just loved him. And it made me so happy because when I love someone and then the Miniature Mouse meets that person and she loves him, I just feel great about the whole thing.
Yeah. It was so exciting to do that scene with him.
I was just going to say, he was very, like, kind to you as an actor, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing about him.
Very, very. Of course, I felt like in my head about.
Yeah, I'm sure you're doing all these stupid things.
Yeah, I was
You're
doing
like,
something.
he thinks I'm just here because I know Dax.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm your babysitter.
But I wrote the role for you.
I know, which is so nice.
Yeah, like I wrote it. I knew. Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, let me throw you a role in the movie. I wrote it for you, with you in mind the whole time.
Yeah. But I still think, he's a big movie star, and he knew that I was your babysitter at that time. At that time, I was your babysitter, and not your babysitter.
Yeah, the movie was somehow inundated with ex-babysitters. Really quick about that. So you were in it. Carly was in it. Other people were in it. Then also, I was watching Fargo, and the music was unbelievable. I'm like, whoever is choosing the music for Fargo is a genius. Well, I look her up, and it's Maggie, who, ironically, I met doing the freebie because she was Mark Duplass's babysitter.
Yeah.
And had then gone on to, she's like the most recognized, talented music picker
She's doing
in
great.
the world now. And so then she came in and did some music stuff on Chips.
Yeah.
And then there was another person that was, somehow it was like the rise of the babysitters, which I felt really good about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so nice. But yeah, he was kind.
I think I always like when I work with actors who really go out of their way to make that person who's just got that one scene feel good and special.
Yeah.
Peter Krause is the king of that.
He is. Of course.
He makes those people feel so wonderful.
Oh, he's so nice.
I try because it's the hardest thing to do. To come in and do a scene in a movie
Oh my God,
is way harder than being the lead of a movie.
It's hard. It's really
You
hard.
can't get your
Rhythm.
and your momentum going.
Yeah. But it was great, and I felt so lucky to get to do a scene with him.
And you guys were really flirting very heavily in
Yeah,
that
that
scene.
part's not true.
It is. I could show you the footage that I cut out. There's
You
he
wanted
was
it to.
asking you on a date later that week.
Well,
and-
that's because I think you came in and you said, I'm sensing some rhythm. Amp that up.
All right. Well, Michael Peña, we love you to pieces. Thanks
Love
for
you.
doing the podcast. And I love you, Miniature Mouse.
Love you.
And Rob, good first time on the mic. We have some kinks to iron out, but all in all, not terrible.
Thanks.